Chapter 405. Going south. The more Chow Yufeng planned his life, and worked hard toward this goal, the more careful he was, as if he was walking on thin ice. He dared not let anything stop him, so he was a little tired of living. In contrast, Xia Ding always did not have a proper career. He spent most of his time flirting with girls instead of working. He seemed to be carefree and relaxed. Everyone had their own choices. Qin Sheng did not dare to say who was right or wrong. After all, he was still young. He could not judge who was right or wrong until 20 or 30 years later. Maybe Chow Yufeng, who was tired now, would be more relaxed at that time. At that time, Xia Ding might not be as good as he was now. Now, Qin Sheng could not care about others. Just like today, although they had vented their anger in the end, Qin Sheng owed Ma Weiyang and Song Husheng a favor. He would have to return the favor sooner or later. Therefore, what he could do was to make himself stronger as soon as possible. In this way, he would have more choices. When Qin Sheng went back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, he found that the Sihiyuan, which was hung with red lanterns, was extraordinarily beautiful at night. If he did not look up at the tall buildings in the distance, he would feel like he was back to a boudoir courtyard in ancient times. Qin Chang'an had not come back yet. It seemed that as long as he went out at night, he would come back very late. In the living room, someone was watching a variety show attentively, but her smile was not so ladylike. Of course, it was Qin Ran. "Sister, why are you back so early?" After Qin Sheng came in, he saw his sister holding a pillow and laughing on the sofa. There were many fruits and snacks on the table. It was rare to see his sister so relaxed, so Qin Sheng said with a smile. Qin Ran looked up and replied, "I only stayed there for a while. Moreover, after you made such a scene, everyone lost interest. So they left early. They went to the workers' sports complex. I felt bored, so I came back." "Did I do something wrong today?" Qin Sheng sat next to her and asked carefully, like a child who had done something wrong. Qin Ran did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Nothing wrong. Your friend was bullied. If you did nothing, it would be wrong." Qin Sheng felt relieved and said, "Thanks to you, Sister Ponytail, and the man from the Song family today. Otherwise, if I were there alone, I'm afraid I would have to bear the consequences. I was a little impulsive at that time. Don't think too much. This circle is like this. You will understand it gradually in the future. Chen Taihe might not fight for Du Xian's sake. He just wants to save face. This is his prestige in the circle. The same goes for Song Husheng. He's not helping you. He's just doing it for himself," Qin Ran explained with a smile. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Do I need to thank him later?" Qin Ran said with interest, "You don't have to be so deliberate. When you see him next time, just say so casually. But he may not appreciate it. I guess he doesn't have a good impression of you." Qin Sheng was confused. Why? Could it be because of this? No matter who was present today, I would have done the same thing. At most, I would have apologized later, even if I had to kowtow and admit my mistake. But I would definitely have done that at that time. Qin Ran thought of Song Ryu. She guessed that Song Husheng would be more dissatisfied with Qin Sheng after what Qin Sheng had done today. Of course, she would not explain. She just said happily, "You will know later." After chatting for a while, the sister and brother went to rest. Qin Ran told Qin Sheng about the specific arrangements for the next day. They would go out to pay New Year's greetings at 8 o'clock. They would go to two families first, have lunch at their uncle's house, and then come back to entertain the guests. The next morning, after breakfast, Qin Ran took Qin Sheng out. Gong Sun had prepared the gifts as usual. Qin Ran was quite familiar with the families that they were going to visit. Today they were not going to visit some old people, but two big shots of the same generation who were close to Qin Chang'an. As for the rest, Qin Chang'an had his own arrangements. The families that Qin Ran and Qin Sheng wanted to visit were the ones that they had to go to. Otherwise, the sister and brother would be exhausted to death if they had to go to every family. As for the arrival of Qin Ran and Qin Shing, Qin Chang'an had informed them in advance. Therefore, everything went smoothly. The elders of the two families showed great concern for Qin Shing. The identities of these two people were not simple. After all, Qin Chang'an had his own reasons for asking Qin Shing to pay a New Year's visit to them. In the end, the sister and brother arrived at a military compound at noon. This was their uncle's house. Qin Ran was very familiar with it, so she went in easily. In the small building on the second floor, except for Zhu Weiguo, the others had been waiting for Qin Shing and Qin Ran. Today, Wu Yajun cooked by herself, and the two daughters-in-law helped her. The nanny had gone home for the new year, but she had prepared everything in advance. After Qin Shing and Qin Ran came in, Zhu Qingyuan hurried to catch them. Zhu Fengyuan ran into the kitchen to inform them. "Mom, Ran and Shing are here." Wu Yajun put down the things in their hands and walked out with the two daughters-in-law. She said with a smile, "You are quite punctual. Lunch will be ready soon. Sit in the living room and let your two cousins chat with you first." "Aunt, let me help you," Qin Ran said with a smile and was about to walk to the kitchen. Wu Yajun said angrily, "Are you sure you won't be a hindrance? You have been to the kitchen a few times since you were a child. The first time you helped me, you almost set the kitchen on fire. It's not like I don't know you." Qin Ran laughed and said, "Aunt, you know me well. Then we can sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor." Qin Shing did not forget to stab Qin Shing in the back. "Sister, it turns out that you have such a tough past. It's already polite of me not to let you in. How about I teach you how to cook later?" Qin Ran stared at Qin Shing and snorted, "Go away. What's so great about cooking? I will find a husband who can cook in the future." After they sat down, Zhu Qingyuan poured them 2 cups of tea. His sister-in-law washed some fruits and brought them out. Qin Ran asked casually, "Cousin, where is uncle? Did he go to visit him?" "He left early yesterday morning. This year is good enough. He didn't come back on the New Year's Eve for the previous 2 years. So this year, we have benefited from you and your sister," Zhu Qingyuan said with a smile. Qin Ran sighed and said, "Oh, I thought Uncle was going to accompany us to Shanghai to visit Grandma this year. The old man happened to be in Jiangsu before the New Year, so he took the time to go to Shanghai. After so many years, the old lady has been used to it. This year, you two are the most important protagonists, so it doesn't matter whether the old man goes or not," Zhu Fengyuan joked with a smile. "I'm not the protagonist. The old lady doesn't miss me. This year, someone is the protagonist. I'm afraid that I have to prepare anti-hypertensive medicine for the old lady in advance." Qin Shing stared at Qin Shing and covered her mouth with a smile. Then she asked, "Who will go with us?" Zhu Qingyuan replied, "Your aunt must stay at home to receive guests. Fengyuan will go back to the army in the afternoon. There are only 3 days of vacation. Someone needs to stay at home to help. So only your sister-in-law and I can go with you to Shanghai with the children. We haven't seen the old lady for several months." Qin Ran could understand what Big Cousin said. Being born in such a family, it was hard to have a chance to reunite. Many families in Siju City were like this. Loyalty and filial piety were always difficult. She sighed and said, "Then I will send a car to pick you and sister-in-law up tomorrow morning." At this time, Zhu Fengyuan's wife walked out of the kitchen and said, "Dinner is ready." Then they moved to the dining room. The atmosphere at lunch was very warm. They were all family here, so they didn't need to worry about their identities. Moreover, Zhu Weiguo was not here, so these juniors were not stressed. They talked freely and made all kinds of jokes. Qin Shing drank some wine with his 2 cousins. But he knew that second cousin would go back to the army in the afternoon, so he didn't drink too much. After lunch, Qin Ran took Qin Shing back to the Sihiyuan. Several guests came to the Zhu family's small building, who were all Wu Yajun's nephews and nieces. When they went back to the Sihiyuan, compared with yesterday, there were many guests in the Qin family today. The front door was like a busy market, and it was very lively. Facing so many guests, Qin Chang'an was more or less exhausted. Moreover, he came back late last night and didn't have a good rest. Fortunately, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran came back at this time, so Qin Chang'an was relieved. At dinner, the children of Qin Chang'an's close friends stayed in the Qin family for dinner. They had to drink more or less during the spring festival. Qin Chang'an was still drunk last night. After a while, he went upstairs to rest, leaving Qin Sheng and Qin Ran to accompany him. These people were all familiar with Qin Ran, but it was the first time for them to meet Qin Sheng. When they found out Qin Sheng's identity, they were all shocked. Therefore, in the end, Qin Sheng was forced to drink a lot by these men. After all, the relationship between men depended on alcohol to maintain. Qin Ran couldn't help much, because she had to take care of the two women. When the dinner ended, it was already 9 o'clock. After seeing the guests out and seeing them get on the car, Qin Sheng directly fell into his sister's arms, completely unconscious, which made Qin Ran feel very sorry for him. After Qin Ran and Gongsun helped Qin Sheng into the room, Qin Sheng vomited a lot not long after. Qin Ran was so angry that she almost smashed Qin Chang'an's door. "You are free now. You let my brother suffer for you." Fortunately, Gongsun stopped her. It was the third day of the spring festival, and it was a good time to travel. Although Qin Sheng took a hot bath and drank 2 bowls of porridge, he was still drunk. He had a headache and felt sleepy. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, Qin Chang'an told them about going to Shanghai, what was for the old lady, what was for their small aunt and uncle. Of course, there were other tasks in Shanghai. Qin Ran stared at Qin Chang'an angrily. Obviously, she hadn't forgiven him. Qin Chang'an was already used to it, so he completely ignored it. After arranging everything, Qin Chang'an smiled and joked, "When you go to Shanghai, don't say bad things about me to your grandmother. She doesn't like me at all." He wanted to ease the relationship with his daughter, although he knew it would be in vain. Qin Ran sneered and said, "You won't go out. How do you know I won't say anything? I want to go, but the old lady may not want to see me." Qin Chang'an sighed. Qin Ran gloated and said, "Oh, it's not so sure this time. Uncle will come to our house for the spring festival. You can try." "Ha ha ha, I'll wait for you to go and ask the old lady. I'll think about it." Qin Chang'an would not be fooled. It was not the first time that he had been refused at the door. Moreover, he could not leave during the spring festival. Qin Ran teased Qin Chang'an for a while and then said with satisfaction, "Okay, I'll plead for her. It's almost time for us to go." Qin Sheng had been silent, but he had no time to care about it now. He had a headache and stomachache, so he had to adjust his state. If he continued to drink at night in Shanghai, it would be embarrassing. At this time, Qin Chang'an walked to Qin Sheng and said sincerely, "The old lady will be very happy to see you. You are her favorite grandson. You can stay in Shanghai for a few more days and accompany the old lady. After all, it has been more than 20 years. Qin Sheng's mood was inexplicably a little heavy. Recently, he had heard a lot of interesting things about his childhood, most of which was how his grandfather and grandmother loved him. So he was a little nervous to see his grandmother, afraid that she would be disappointed. They set off for the airport. This time, Qin Chang'an arranged for 2 bodyguards to go with them. After all, they were in Shanghai, and there was the threat of the Yan family. They had to be more or less careful. He and Gongsun watched the siblings leave and came back. When Qin Sheng saw the old lady, the debt of kindness between the Qin family and the Zhu family for more than 20 years would really end. They arrived at the airport at 11 o'clock. Zhu Qingyuan and his wife had been waiting for a long time with their child. After they met, they went through the security check and got on the plane, which took off soon. Chapter 406. Chapter 405 Introductio and Silly Lin Su. It's the end of the month. Please get a monthly ticket. Please get a monthly ticket. Considering Zhu Qingyuan's identity, they didn't take the Gulfstream G650 of the Qin family to Shanghai this time. After all, Zhu Qingyuan was an official with a high position. Although it was just a private activity to visit relatives and friends during the Spring Festival, it would be troublesome if someone wanted to take advantage of it. It was not a bad thing to be cautious. The most important thing was that Zhu Qingyuan was Zhu Weiguo's son. Therefore, Qin Ran and Qin Xing, together with their sister-in-law and 2 children, sat in the first-class cabin in the front. Zhu Qingyuan and his 2 bodyguards sat in the economy cabin in the back. Today was the 3rd day of the Spring Festival. There were not many passengers on the plane. Qin Xing chatted with his sister-in-law for a while and played with the 2 kids. Qin Ran chatted with his sister-in-law about women's topics. Qin Xing liked children very much, especially the mischievous Now, who was very likable. Nowadays, the old lady loved this great-granddaughter the most. Even the air stewardess could not help but praise her. Now, on the other hand, said that her sister was very beautiful, which made everyone laugh. Now liked to sleep late. It was her only hobby. Even kids liked it, not to mention in winter. Usually, Now would not be up at this time. These days, she got up early and slept late, so she fell asleep after playing for a while. Sitting next to Now, Qin Xing narrowed his eyes and started to think about Shanghai. Qin Chang'an asked him to stay in Shanghai for a while and accompany his old lady, who hadn't seen him for more than 20 years. Maybe he could do something during this time. Even if he didn't want to hurt Yin Chaozong, he should meet some old friends. After thinking for a while, Qin Xing, who had not yet sobered up, felt sleepy. Now, who was beside him, was sleeping so soundly. Qin Xing had to continue to sleep so that he could be in the best state to meet his grandmother, who loved him the most. The temperature in Ningbo started to rise at the beginning of the Spring Festival. Everything gradually woke up. However, everyone was still immersed in the atmosphere of the Spring Festival and didn't notice anything strange. In the old mansion of the Lin family in Ningbo, as one of the wealthiest families in the region, the Lin family's manor, which covered an area of thousands of acres, was envied by countless local tycoons. It was estimated that many people were waiting for the Lin family's downfall and then couldn't wait to buy the Lin family's manor. However, the Lin family had been standing on this land for hundreds of years. How could it fall so easily? Every new year, the Lin family's manor would be especially beautiful. The roads on both sides of the road were decorated with lanterns and china knots. Even the trees were decorated with landscape lights. Those who didn't know better would think that it was a tourist attraction. During the Spring Festival, any wealthy family like the Lin family, which had been rooted in a piece of land for hundreds of years, would be bustling with visitors. The courtyard was filled with luxury cars from all over the city. The 2 men of the Lin family received guests from different circles. After all, there were so many collateral relatives of the Lin family. The old lady was getting on in years. Due to her poor mood and health, she refused to entertain any guests this year. She spent most of her time in the temple, except for her morning and evening strolls and meals. The Lin family, which seemed to be full of distinguished guests, was actually hiding an unknown crisis. After all, the Lin family had not had an easy time this year. The initiator was Qin Xing, or rather, Qin Chang'an, who was behind Qin Xing. After Qin Xing had an accident on Mount Jihua, Qin Chang'an had secretly made things difficult for the Lin family. A series of means made the Lin family exhausted. In addition, the government had implemented too many macro-control policies on the real estate and financial industry in the past 2 years, which made the Lin family's situation even worse. Therefore, these sequelae had not ended until now. Therefore, after missing out on the marriage alliance with the Yen family, the Lin family began to look for a powerful ally again. This time, the bargaining chip was still Lin Su. Especially after knowing that Lin Su was faking her pregnancy, Lin Chongting was even more eager to find a powerful ally to provide more resources and funds. It had to be said that Lin Su was so unlucky to be born in a family like the Lin family. The most important thing was that she had a father who was extremely ambitious but had a fragile life. Although he was not capable and insightful, he was very ambitious. Lin Su, who had officially become Qin Sheng's woman, naturally refused without hesitation. There was no chance for her to compromise, which made Lin Chongting fly into a rage. He directly put Lin Su under house arrest and refused anyone's visit. Even the old lady, who wanted to see her granddaughter, was not allowed. The old lady was so angry that she could not get out of bed for a few days. During the Spring Festival, she even closed the door and refused to meet any guests. Therefore, the atmosphere in the Lin family was very subtle. On the third day of the Spring Festival, many guests came to the Lin family. Not to mention the children and nephews of the collateral relatives of the Lin family, there were many relatives of the two hostesses of the Lin family. Therefore, Lin Chongting and Lin Chongha had to entertain the guests in their respective buildings and had no time to spare at all. At this time, Lin Yu sneaked out and went to the building where Lin Su was put under house arrest. Usually, this place was used to receive guests. This time, 6 people were arranged to take care of Lin Su to prevent her from contacting others. Moreover, all the phones and internet in this building were blocked. Even Lin Su's mobile phone was taken away. Lin Yu cleverly avoided all the surveillance cameras and spies. Finally, she came to the back kitchen of this building. After making sure that there was no one around, she gently knocked on the door several times. Then the door was opened from the inside. A middle-aged woman stuck her head out and hurriedly pulled Lin Yu in. The middle-aged woman with dark skin frowned and said, "Second miss, you only have 15 minutes. Don't be late. Pay special attention to my secret signal, or I will have to leave the Lin family." She was one of the servants in charge of taking care of Lin Su. Today, she had taken a great risk to let Lin Yu sneak in through the back door. After all, Lin Yu had paid off the gambling debt of her gambler husband. This was the corresponding reward. Lin Yu, who had a ponytail, nodded silently and said, "Aunt Gu, don't worry. I will be out soon." The middle-aged woman called Aunt Gu said uneasily, "Then you go upstairs quickly. The eldest miss is in the room on the right side of the second floor by the window. She is so poor. I am sure she will be very happy to see you." Lin Yu felt somewhat bitter. She nodded and went upstairs carefully to see her sister. Until now, she still could not understand why her eldest uncle had done this. He clearly knew that her sister already had a boyfriend, but he still forced her to marry a stranger who had no feelings for her. Moreover, after what had happened to Yan Chaozong, he still wanted to do this. At the same time, she somewhat hated Qin Sheng. That ungrateful man. Why did he not come to her sister until now? Why did he let her bear all of this alone? Knock, knock, knock. When she heard the knock on the door, Lin Su, who would dress very delicately every day, was reading a book by the window. Everything outside the window could not affect her mood. The only thing that could affect her mood was every time she thought about whether that man was alive or dead, whether he was living a good life, whether he was very tired, whether he had suffered hardships, whether he had been bullied again, whether he had been wronged again, whether he could not contact her, and whether he would be very anxious and worried. It had been more than 2 months. Lin Su had lost a lot of weight. The smile on her face had also decreased a lot. However, the look in her eyes was very firm. The kind of temperament that came naturally and naturally became more and more refined. Hearing the knock on the door, Lin Su frowned slightly. It was not time for dinner yet. Why would someone disturb her? Lin Yu shouted somewhat anxiously, "Sister, open the door quickly. It's me." Hearing Lin Yu's voice, Lin Su was very surprised. She ran over in a hurry and opened the door. Seeing her sister, whom she had not seen for a long time, Lin Su held Lin Yu's hand and said in surprise, "Lin Yu, why are you here?" Lin Yu was very excited. Her eyes were red as she said, "Sister, I missed you so much. You have been wronged." Lin Su was also somewhat touched, but she did not cry. She smiled and comforted Lin Yu as she said, "Silly girl, why are you crying? I am fine now." Since time was limited, Lin Yu had no time to be sad. She wiped away her tears in a hurry and followed her sister to the bedside. After she sat down, she asked, "Sister, are you okay?" Lin Su wiped away her sister's tears and chuckled as she said, "I am fine. In fact, it is quieter here. I read books and play the piano every day. It is rare for me to be so relaxed. If I had been outside, I would have had to face those people whom I did not want to face and listen to them saying the same things every day. That would have been more tiring." Lin Yu gritted her teeth as she said, "Sister, you should not have come back. You should have gone far away with him, just like you did in Shaman. Only then would you have been happy." Lin Yu could see her sister's future from here. Consequently, Lin Yu had been in a bad mood during this period because her family had already planned to do so. Lin Su shook her head and smiled as she said, "Lin Yu, I know that you blame him. However, there are some things that you do not understand. The grievances I have suffered are not worth mentioning compared to the pressure he has been under. He asked me to go back to the Lin family for my own good. At that time, he was in a very dangerous situation and could not protect me at all. If I stayed, I would only be a burden to him. As long as he is alive, everything will be fine. Moreover, he promised to come back to pick me up." Lin Yu frowned as she said, "Sister, it has been so long. There is no news about him at all. Do you still believe him?" She did not dare to say too harsh words for fear of hurting her sister. Originally, she wanted to say, "Sister, it has been so long. Don't be so naive anymore. Don't have any hope. He must have forgotten you and completely abandoned you. He is a coward." Lin Su nodded without hesitation as she said, "Of course. Of course, I believe him. This is the man I chose. If I don't believe him, who else can? I firmly believe that the best choice I have made in my life is him." Lin Yu somewhat admired her sister's determination. She followed up and asked, "Sister, have you ever regretted it?" Lin Su shook her head firmly again as she said, "Regret? No, never. Do you know when my happiest days were? During the half a year in Shaman, I accompanied him to walk and exercise every day. I saw him reading in the corner and practicing calligraphy in the study. Then I went to the market with him to buy vegetables and asked him to teach me how to cook. I heard him mumble that this dish is salty and that dish is a little sour. Wife, you have to work hard in the future." After that, I lowered my head and ate all the vegetables. When Lin Su said these words, there was a kind of radiance in her eyes. It seemed that she had returned to the life in Shaman again. It was really the most carefree and happiest days of her life. Consequently, she loved this man deeply and would continue to love him deeply. Although Lin Yu did not want to hurt her sister, she still said, "Sister, Big Brother said that he is dead. If he is dead, what will you do?" "No, he said that he is an undying cockroach. He said that his grandfather once told him that he would live to at least 80 years old. How could he be dead?" Lin Su found it funny as she thought of the man's look when he said these words. He was so talkative and deserved a beating. Lin Yu asked again, "Sister, I mean, what if he is really dead?" Lin Su's eyes were somewhat dim. Then she squinted, looked out of the window, bit her lip, and said slowly, "When I know this news, it will be the time for me to leave this world. Without him, there will be no nostalgia in this world." Upon hearing this, Lin Yu looked shocked. Chapter 407. Chapter 406, Introduction. A New Year's gift. Although Lin Su was born in the Lin family, she was a super fair, rich, and beautiful girl in other people's eyes. Her friends and bosom friends all envied her. She had been pampered since she was a child and lacked nothing. It seemed that she was very happy. However, only Lin Su knew that she was not happy in the Lin family. Except for her grandmother, most people did not like her, especially that aunt and her brother. Maybe it was because of her mother. Therefore, the happiest time for Lin Su was when she accompanied Qin Sheng in Xiamen to recuperate. She was carefree, simple, and stress-free. She did not need to think about those annoying things or see those people she did not want to see. The moment she chose Qin Sheng, she had made up her mind. No matter how much resistance she encountered, she would never compromise with anyone, because she wanted to fight for a simple love for herself. She would rather give up everything, and she had been doing that all the time. She was waiting for Qin Sheng to pick her up. She also believed that Qin Sheng would not forget her, even if it was the worst result. Lin Yu did not expect her sister to think so. It made her a little scared. She was afraid that what her brother said was true, that Qin Sheng was already dead. What about her sister? She did not know how charming this man was to make her sister do this. After Lin Yu came to herself, she held Lin Su's hand tightly and said uneasily, "Sister, don't scare me." Lin Su laughed and said, "I'm just kidding. You really believe it? How can I bear to leave you, my silly sister? I still want to see you get married. Moreover, there is still Grandma. She will definitely be sad. Moreover, Qin Sheng will not let me do this. I should be strong and continue to live." Lin Yu let out a long sigh and patted her chest. That's good, that's good. Sister, you scared me to death." Lin Yu did not know which part of Lin Su's words was true. Maybe only Lin Su knew. At least she would continue to wait for him. Lin Yu suddenly said mysteriously, "I almost forgot the business. Sister, guess what I brought you?" Lin Su frowned slightly and stared at Lin Yu curiously. "What? Is it my New Year's gift?" Lin Yu took out a mobile phone, handed it to Lin Su, and said, This is your New Year's gift. I risked my life to steal it from eldest uncle." What Lin Yu sent to Lin Su was Lin Su's mobile phone, which had been taken away. Lin Su was shocked. She frowned and said, "Lin Yu, where did you find it? If your eldest uncle knows it, you will be doomed." Lin Yu said proudly, "Sister, as for how I found it, you don't have to worry about it. Moreover, eldest uncle definitely won't find out, because I did it secretly. Your sister is smart, right?" She knew that her sister's mobile phone had been taken away, so Qin Sheng definitely could not contact her sister. Therefore, she prepared a new phone in advance. Fortunately, she knew that her sister's screen was the original picture of the phone. She could set the password randomly. Anyway, they didn't know her sister's original password. Last night at dinner, Big Brother went out for a drink and didn't come back. Big Uncle stayed at home to entertain the guests, so Auntie naturally had to accompany him. She sneaked into her eldest uncle's study. She didn't have high hopes, but who knew that she really found it in the drawer of his desk. Finally, she got the mobile phone. Lin Su was very excited and said, "Lin Yu, you are so smart. I love you so much." Lin Yu took out the charger and handed it to Lin Su. She said, Here is the charger. But don't let him find out. Otherwise, both of us will be doomed." Lin Su said happily, "Got it? Am I so stupid?" Lin Yu laughed and said, "Turn it on quickly. See if brother-in-law has contacted you. You disappeared for so long, he must be worried about you." Lin Su was somewhat nervous. She was afraid that there would be no news about Qin Sheng, because there was only one possibility, which was that Qin Sheng was dead. After all, such a long time had passed. Qin Sheng would definitely contact her to tell her that he was safe. Moreover, it was impossible for Qin Sheng to give up on her. Lin Su turned the phone on and waited. A series of messages popped up. She didn't bother to open WeChat at all. Instead, she directly tapped on the messages, looking for messages that might be sent by Qin Sheng. The more Lin Su scrolled down, the more nervous she felt. She was afraid that there would be no news about Qin Sheng. However, God didn't let her down. Finally, she found the message sent by Qin Sheng, because she saw the word wife. Although it was a strange number, only Qin Sheng would call her that. Therefore, Lin Su was almost sure that this message was sent by Qin Sheng. She couldn't wait to tap on the messages and saw the message sent by Qin Xing on New Year's Eve. Wife, Happy New Year. I am fine. I will pick you up after the New Year. When she saw this sentence, she didn't doubt the authenticity of this message anymore. At this moment, Lin Su felt that all the waiting was worth it. No matter how much she had to suffer, she would not be afraid, because Qin Xing was still alive and he didn't forget their promise. She stared at the phone and smiled foolishly. Her eyes gradually became blurred. In the end, the screen was wet with tears. Lin Yu guessed that her sister must have seen brother-in-law's message. However, she didn't know whether it was good or bad. She was somewhat worried and quickly lowered her head to read the message. After reading the message, Lin Yu hugged her sister and said, "Sister, you are right. Brother-in-law didn't let you down." Lin Su smiled and nodded with red eyes. "Sister, call brother-in-law. Brother-in-law must have sent you a message because he couldn't reach you." Lin Yu reminded her in a hurry. She was afraid that her sister would be too excited and forget these things. Lin Su wiped her tears and immediately dialed the strange number. However, God played tricks again. Qin Xing was on the plane to Shanghai at this moment, so his phone was turned off as expected. Hearing the beep from the phone, Lin Su, who was in a good mood, suddenly felt disappointed. The message was sent a few days ago. Why did his phone suddenly turn off during the New Year? "Sister, don't worry. Maybe his phone is out of battery or he hasn't woken up yet. I will write down his number and call a few more times later. You can try it." Lin Yu comforted her with a smile. In fact, she was also not sure, but she did this for now. Lin Su shook her head and smiled bitterly. "I am not so fragile." Lin Su hesitated for a while and finally sent a message to Qin Xing, "Happy New Year. I am fine and waiting for you." On the plane to Shanghai, of course, Qin Xing did not receive this message. However, he saw Lin Su in his dream. He dreamed that Lin Su gave birth to a son and a daughter for him. Lin Su held the daughter in her arms and basked in the sun in the courtyard of the Sihiyuan. He played with his son by the side. Life was so comfortable. When Qin Xing opened his eyes, the plane had begun to descend. In 20 minutes, they would arrive at Shanghai Pudong Airport. Now tilted her head and stared at Qin Xing in a daze. The little girl blinked her big watery eyes and asked, "Uncle, why did you smile when you were sleeping?" Qin Xing said gently, "Because I dreamed of someone I liked." Now, do you have someone you like?" "Yes, Grandpa, Grandma, Dad, Mom, Brother. There are so many." Now counted seriously with her fingers. Qin Xing touched Now's hair and said with a smile, Now, you are such a good girl. When we arrive in Shanghai, I will take you to Disneyland, okay?" "Really? Uncle, I like you too." Hearing the words, Disneyland, Now instantly replied happily. Qin Xing could not help laughing out loud when he heard her say, "Uncle, I like you too." Children were really interesting. In the future, if Lin Su was willing, she could give birth to at least 3 or 4 children, even if she did not dare to say that she could give birth to 8 or 10 children. Thinking of this, Qin Xing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was afraid that Lin Su would definitely beat him if she knew it. Didn't she know that it was very hard for a woman to give birth to a child? After the plane landed at Pudong International Airport, Qin Xing pushed his luggage and held Now in his arms and followed the others out. His sister-in-law muttered, "Qin Xing, don't spoil her too much. Let her come down and walk by herself." "Cousin-in-law, it's okay. Girls should be spoiled," Qin Xing said half-jokingly. The others could not help laughing. Could be seen that Qin Xing liked children very much and liked Now very much. They were afraid that he would spoil her to death these days. Qin Ran had arranged everything in advance, and did not ask Small Ant to pick them up at the airport. She did not need to bother them with such a small thing. After all, everyone was very busy during the Spring Festival. A Buick business car was just right for everyone. 2 bodyguards sat in the SUV behind with their luggage. At this time, Qin Shing finally did not need to hold Now in his arms, so he handed her over to his sister-in-law. After they set off, Zhu Qingyuan asked casually, "Qin Shing, have you been to Shanghai before?" Qin Shing took out his phone and was about to turn it on. Qin Ran heard her cousin's words and replied with a smile, "Cousin, you definitely don't know that Qin Shing's university is in Shanghai." "Oh, I really don't know." "Which university?" Zhu Qingyuan said in surprise. Qin Ran smiled slightly and said, "Fudan?" "Oh, it turns out that Qin Shing is also in Fudan. It seems that our family and Fudan are quite predestined," Zhu Qingyuan said with interest, because small aunt was teaching in Fudan. Zhu Qingyuan looked at Qin Shing and asked again, "Qin Shing, what's your major?" Qin Shing stared at the phone and said nothing. Zhu Qingyuan asked again, "Qin Shing." Qin Shing still stared at the phone and said nothing. "Why?" Chapter 408. I Love You, Me Too. Qin Shing had dreamt of Lin Su on the plane, but he didn't expect that he would receive Lin Su's text message as soon as he landed. At this moment, he was so excited that he didn't know what to do. After all, he finally felt at ease. He was thinking of her, and she was also thinking of him. How many one-night stands were there? The ends of the earth and the ends of the world were not long. Qin Shing and Lin Su had been separated for more than 2 months. Not to say that one day without seeing each other felt like 3 years, but they had been together for a whole year and had long been used to each other's existence. Moreover, they were in love, and this kind of missing each other made them sleepless at night and confused. Other people's separation was just a short separation, and in today's society, they could still contact each other through the phone and the internet. However, Qin Shing and Lin Su's separation was almost the difference between life and death. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they dared not contact each other easily. When facing death, Qin Shing thought of Lin Su. When he fled to Tsingtao, Qin Shing also thought of Lin Su. When he returned to Beijing, Qin Shing still thought of Lin Su. This woman, who was neither sad nor happy, meant a lot to him. She made Qin Shing feel that he would rather let everyone down than let her down. 2 words, waiting for you. For Qin Shing, this was the best words of love in the world. It didn't need thousands of words or sweet words to let him understand Lin Su's deep love in an instant. Qin Shing stared at the phone in a daze for a long time. He really wanted to see his beloved woman through the phone. He giggled, just like Lin Su when she saw his text message. Zhu Qingyuan didn't know what happened, so that Qin Shing stared at the phone in a daze. He called her several times, but there was no response. He thought that something big had happened to make Qin Shing so absent-minded. He subconsciously looked at Qin Shing's phone screen. When he saw the line of text message, he understood what was going on. Zhu Qingyuan patted Qin Ran's shoulder in front of him with a smile. When Qin Ran turned around, Zhu Qingyuan pointed at Qin Shing. Qin Ran didn't know what her big cousin meant. She looked at Qin Shing in confusion and frowned slightly. She didn't know why Qin Shing stared at the phone in a daze. "Qin Shing, what's wrong with you?" Qin Ran asked with concern. Only then did Qin Shing come to his senses. He raised his head and looked at Qin Ran. His eyes were full of longing and love as he said, "Sister, I miss her." Of course, Qin Ran knew what was going on. They had not seen each other for more than 2 months. Of course, Qin Shing missed his wife. She pursed her lips and smiled faintly as she said, "After I finish the business in Shanghai, I will accompany you to Ningbo. This time, I will see who dares to stop you." In the end, Qin Ran's face was filled with anger. If not for the fact that she was really satisfied with Lin Su and that she loved Qin Shing deeply, Qin Ran really did not want to have anything to do with such a family. Qin Ran knew how the Lin family treated Qin Shing and Lin Su. If Qin Chang'an had not stopped her, she would have gone over to argue with the Lin family. Zhu Qingyuan did not know what was going on. He smiled happily and said, Oh, our Qin Sheng already has a girlfriend. Your cousin-in-law said that she would introduce a girlfriend to you. It seems that it is not necessary. When will you let us meet your girlfriend? Qin Ran was thinking about the Lin family. Upon hearing what Qin Sheng said, she smiled faintly and said, Cousin, our Qin Sheng's girlfriend is very beautiful. She is a girl that both the old man and I are very satisfied with. She has done a lot for Qin Sheng. When you meet her in the future, you will know how excellent this girl is. But, upon hearing what Qin Ran said, Zhu Qingyuan was happy for Qin Sheng. Unexpectedly, Qin Ran changed the topic. Zhu Qingyuan asked curiously, But what? The girl's family makes me feel a little disgusted. They have been obstructing us in every way possible, Qin Ran said angrily. She also wanted Zhu Qingyuan to know how much grievance Qin Sheng had suffered before he returned to the Qin family. Zhu Qingyuan immediately asked with a gloomy face, What happened? You may not know how our Qin Sheng was treated when he went to that family for the first time. Not to mention that he was not allowed to drink a glass of water. They were mean and sarcastic. The most hateful thing was that they beat Qin Sheng out, Qin Ran said, gnashing her teeth. Zhu Qingyuan was shocked and said, Really? These things had passed. Qin Sheng could understand that the Lin family looked down on him, so he said with some embarrassment, Sister, let's not talk about this. Qin Ran did not stop there. Instead, she replied, Why not? You don't know how many days I felt when I found out about this. If the old man had not stopped me, I really wanted to go to Ningbo and stand in front of the elders of the Lin family, asking them face to face, Is this the way the Lin family raised them? What a good Lin family! Zhu Qingyuan said with a gloomy look. He did not expect that Qin Sheng had suffered such a great grievance. Qin Ran continued to complain. They think that their family is prominent, while our Qin Sheng is ordinary and does not deserve their family. There are many things that I will not say, lest they affect everyone's mood. Cousin, I am afraid that, if you know, you will even want to kill them. Zhu Qingyuan said meaningfully. Then I really want to meet the Lin family and see their ugly faces. But Ran, don't tell Grandma about this. If she knows it, it will be a big deal. Zhu Qingyuan said meaningfully, Okay. Seeing that Qin Sheng was somewhat dissatisfied, Qin Ran stopped hurriedly and said, Of course I know. The old lady loved this grandson the most. They had been separated for more than 20 years, so she knew that her grandson must have suffered a lot outside and suffered a lot. If she knew about this, according to the old lady's temper, she would cut the Lin family into pieces. Qin Sheng and Lin Su's relationship would be affected in the end. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he also knew that his sister cared about him. However, after being interrupted by his sister, Qin Sheng almost forgot the business. He picked up his phone again and directly dialed Lin Su's number. He could not wait to hear Lin Su's voice. In the Lin family's manner, Lin Su was chatting with Lin Yu. The two sisters had not seen each other for a long time and had a lot to talk about. However, Lin Yu stared at the time and had to leave when it was time. Otherwise, she and her sister would be punished if they were found out. At this moment, Lin Su's phone, which was placed by the bedside, suddenly vibrated, startling her. She subconsciously picked up the phone. When she saw the name displayed on the screen, she almost burst into tears again. She had already saved Qin Sheng's new phone number just now, afraid that she would miss his message. Lin Su held the phone and was somewhat at a loss. Lin Yu also saw Qin Sheng's face and said excitedly, Sister, why are you still in a daze? Answer it quickly. Lin Su slowly answered the phone, her right hand grabbing her clothes nervously. After more than 2 months, she finally received his call. She did not know how to describe this feeling. In the car to Shanghai downtown, Qin Sheng was even more anxious than Lin Su. He had prepared a lot of words, but when the phone was answered, he was so nervous that he did not know what to say. It was like the scene when he met Lin Su again in Shanghai. In the end, Qin Sheng still took the initiative to speak first. He did not care that his sister, cousin, and cousin-in-law were still in the car, and said in a very gentle voice, "Wife, you have been wronged." Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan looked at each other and smiled. They did their own things at the same time and did not disturb Qin Xing and his girlfriend's romance. It was still a familiar voice. What Qin Xing said made Lin Su, who had been holding back her tears, instantly turn red. She replied with a slight sob, "I am not wronged. I am not wronged at all." Qin Xing could feel that Lin Su, who was sitting opposite him, had already cried. He said very distressingly, "You are not allowed to cry during the spring festival. It is so inauspicious. When you smile, I think you look the most beautiful." "Okay, I won't cry." Lin Su nodded obediently. Then, she wiped her tears and raised the corner of her mouth, showing the most brilliant smile. It was as if Qin Xing was standing in front of her and could see her smile. Qin Xing said immediately, "I am very good, very good. You don't have to worry. It's just that a lot of things have happened during this period. The happiest thing is that I found my parents, my sister, and many other relatives. I will explain to you when I see them. They all want to meet you and meet the stupidest woman in the world." Upon hearing this news, Lin Su was very shocked. She knew everything about Qin Xing. She knew that Qin Xing and his grandfather depended on each other since childhood. Most of the time, he lived in his foster parents' house. After his grandfather passed away, he really became an orphan. It did not occur to her that Qin Xing actually found his biological parents and other relatives. She felt happy for Qin Xing from the bottom of her heart. "Really? That's great. I don't know how to be happy for you. However, I am not stupid at all," Lin Su said excitedly. Qin Xing said with a smile, "If you are not stupid, you are so beautiful and outstanding. How could you find a man like me who has achieved nothing? I don't allow you to say that. I believe in my judgment. The man I choose is definitely the most outstanding man in the world." Lin Su pouted and said discontentedly. Then, she praised Qin Xing a few more times. Qin Xing felt both distressed and gratified. She was really a silly woman. There was a world of difference between before and after falling in love. No wonder the seniors all said that no matter how aloof a goddess was, she would become a little woman after finding the man she liked. At this time, Qin Xing became silent because he thought of this stupid woman's situation in the Lin family. The more relaxed she seemed to be, the more Qin Xing felt. "Why don't you say anything?" Lin Su asked confusedly. Qin Xing sighed and squinted. "I know how the Lin family treated you. I know all of this. There are some things that I don't know how to tell you. But you just need to know that I am not the Qin Xing in the past anymore. I will definitely make the Lin family pay for what they have done to me and you. I am really fine. You don't have to worry." Lin Su was afraid that Qin Xing would do something impulsive again, so she quickly comforted him. Qin Xing felt that it was useless to say these things now. He had to pick up Lin Su as soon as possible. So he replied, "Wife, wait for me for a few more days. Just a few more days. After I finish my business in Shanghai, I will go to Ningbo to pick you up immediately. This time, no one can stop me." "Okay." Lin Su nodded heavily, because she knew Qin Xing's character very well. If he was not absolutely sure, he would not have been so confident. Maybe a lot of things had happened during this period. Maybe she would know when she met Qin Xing. Now, she was already looking forward to meeting Qin Xing in a few days. Whether it was 10 days, half a year, or 3 to 5 years, she could wait. At this time, Aunt Gu, who lived downstairs, ran up and knocked on the door. "Second miss, come out quickly. Someone is coming. If you don't leave now, it will be too late." Lin Yu originally wanted to chat with her sister after the phone call. Now she could only stand up quickly and said, "Sister, someone is coming. I have to go now." Lin Su was very reluctant to hang up the phone. She really wanted to talk to Qin Xing more. But someone was coming. At this time, she had no choice but to say, "Someone is coming. I have to hang up." I will call you later. Lin Yu just stole the phone from me. It did not occur to him that the Lin family had even confiscated Lin Su's mobile phone, which made him very angry. But now he could only say, I see. Take care of yourself. If you really can't bear it, inform me immediately. I will definitely come to you as soon as possible. Qin Shing's words made Qin Shing realize why he could not get in touch with Lin Su a few days ago. Got it, Lin Su replied with a smile. I love you, Qin Shing said sincerely. Even if he said 10,000 times, he could not express the love in his heart. Hearing these 3 words, Lin Su instantly blushed. She said gently, me too. After saying these 3 words, Lin Su quickly hung up the phone. If she did not hang up and was discovered, she would not be able to contact Qin Shing in the future. Chapter 409. Chapter 408 Introduction Calling Grandma. The second chapter was late. This chapter took a long time to write and made everyone wait for a long time. Although he hung up the phone, he missed her so much. Qin Shing was lying comfortably in his seat with a smile on his face. It was so sweet that it could melt the snow in winter. The new year was a new beginning. Lin Su's phone call filled Qin Shing with anticipation for the coming year. At least this year, he would not have to wander from place to place. This year, he would not be alone and helpless. In the Lin family's manner, Lin Su, who was lying on the bed, had the same smile and the same mood. She was looking forward to Qin Shing's arrival in a few days, like the first spring breeze in the cold winter, like the first dawn in the long darkness, waiting for the spring breeze and the warm sun. However, Lin Su was thinking more about what Qin Shing had experienced during this period of time. How did he find his family? Why was he so confident? What was he going to do in Shanghai? Could it be that he was going to take revenge on Yan Chaozong? Thinking of this, Lin Su started to worry about Qin Shing again. She began to worry about her gains and losses. But then she laughed at herself. Qin Shing was not so stupid. Moreover, if he had to choose between taking revenge or picking her up, he would definitely choose the latter without hesitation. After Qin Shing finished the call, Qin Ran turned around and deliberately joked, I didn't expect that my brother could be so mushy. When will you say, I love you to me? Now, who was sitting behind, finally cheered up. She giggled and said, Auntie Ran, I love you. Qin Shing was a little embarrassed and replied, Sister, don't make fun of me. Qin Shing was talking on the phone just now. Although everyone was avoiding him, they naturally heard him. They knew some of the bad things and also heard the good things. Zhu Qingyuan was getting more and more interested in the Lin family. All right, I'm just teasing you. You're blushing. I know you haven't seen or contacted each other for more than 2 months. This is human nature. If it were others, they would have gone crazy. But you can bear the loneliness, Qin Ran said with a smile. Qin Shing said with interest, Sister, what about you? Do you have anyone you like? When will you get married? Qin Ran pretended to be angry and said, Well, boy, do you have any conscience? You just came back and you already want to drive me away. Are you afraid that I won't leave early? Besides, your wife hasn't married yet. I'm not happy. Qin Shing hurriedly bowed to the back of the seat in front of him and apologized, Sister, I didn't mean that. How can I bear to leave you? Where can I find a sister who loves me so much? It's been more than 20 years, and I've finally found such a biological sister. I can't wait to have her by my side. Besides, I really don't know which man is worthy of my sister. Qin Ran was satisfied after hearing that, but she still teased Qin Shing on purpose. So you mean I can't get married? Qin Shing said helplessly, It's over. I've offended you so much. Whatever I say is wrong. As expected, he could not offend a woman. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. If he tried to reason with a woman or quarrel with her, he would lose as soon as he opened his mouth. Seeing her brother's embarrassed look, Qin Ran smiled so much that her eyes almost became a line. She almost turned around, pinched Qin Sheng's face and said, "You are such a silly brother." After more than 20 years of waiting, it had been 2 months since Qin Sheng came back. Qin Ran felt that the relationship between them seemed to have returned to their childhood. However, when they were young, it was her brother who always protected her. Now that they had grown up, it was her turn to protect her brother. However, she was a woman after all. A woman had to get married. It was impossible for her to stay in the Qin family forever. Even if her brother and the old man were willing, her brother's future wife would not be willing. Besides, she did not think about not getting married. Therefore, Qin Ran sighed and said with some relief, "Yes, you're back. My task has been completed. It's time for me to get married. If I don't get married, I will really become an old lady who no one wants." "Sister, don't say that," Qin Sheng said with some distress. As he had thought before, it seemed that he had lived a hard life in the past 20 years, but these relatives were more pitiful. This was because he did not know that he still had relatives, but these relatives knew of his existence. As long as they could not find him, they would feel sad and tormented, especially relatives like his sister, who had doted on him since he was young. They felt more wronged than him. Qin Ran turned around and looked at him gently. She smiled faintly and said, "Silly brother." The atmosphere in the car was a little sad and a little warm. Zhu Qingyuan looked at this pair of brother and sister who had not seen each other for more than 20 years. He did not feel any estrangement or distance between them. It seemed that they had never been separated. Maybe this was family. The 2 cars went from Pudong Airport to the place where the old lady lived along the viaduct. When Qin Sheng had been in Shanghai before, he had walked this road countless times. He had long been familiar with the surrounding buildings. However, this time, the feeling was the most different. He remembered that when he had just returned to Shanghai 2 years ago, it was the first time after he graduated from university. He stood by the Huangpu River and looked at the increasingly prosperous city. He said meaningfully, "One day this city will remember me for many years to come." However, the reality was cruel. God gave him a hard slap in the face. In the end, he left in embarrassment. After all, this city had a population of tens of millions. Many people had said such bold words. Any ambitious man wanted to stand out after entering this city, especially those who came from small places. However, in the end, how many people had taken root in this city? How many people had made a name for themselves? How many people had made a name for themselves? How many people had been remembered by the city like Qin Sheng? Most people were defeated by reality. They either lived in this city or left helplessly. When he went to Mount Zhihua, he did not know that it was the last time he would leave Shanghai. However, when he was in Xiamen, he told himself that he would go back sooner or later. After that, the most important thing to do when he went back was to take revenge. That was why he was so desperate when he was in Hangzhou. It seemed that he wanted to seize any opportunity, whether it was Chowda, Third Master Wu, Boss Hu of the underground boxing field, or Master Lu. However, in the end, he left Hangzhou in embarrassment again. This time, he was more miserable than the last time. At least he had Lin Su with him last time. This time, he was alone. At that time, Qin Sheng had forgotten what he had said when he had just arrived in Shanghai. His only hope was to accumulate enough strength to go back and take revenge. However, God had played a joke on him, and this joke was not an ordinary one. That was why he could return to Shanghai in such a short period of time, openly and aboveboard. "Shanghai, I'm back," Qin Sheng could not help saying again when they were on the highway. Number 68 Sinan Road, diagonally opposite the Sinan Mansion and directly opposite the Memorial Hall of the Chinese Communist delegation in Shanghai, the old lady of the Zhu family lived here. It was very close to Fuxing Park. Besides, it was close to Ruijin Hospital. The old lady was not in good health. Once there was an emergency, she could be sent to the hospital immediately. This old foreign-style house was the legacy of the old lady's brother. The old lady's family lived nearby, but it was demolished later. The old lady's brother didn't want to go anywhere else, so his son bought this foreign-style house for his father to live comfortably for thousands of years. Every time the old lady came back to Shanghai, she lived here. Later, the old lady's brother passed away. The old lady's nephew did not dare to sell this old foreign-style house. He knew that his aunt liked to live at home every time she came back, so he renovated it. Since then, the old lady had been living here instead of living with her little daughter. She was familiar with the environment here and preferred to live here. Secondly, she also liked quiet and did not want to be disturbed by others. Most importantly, the identity of the youngest son-in-law was relatively simple. Now he was more and more distant. The old lady was a native of Shanghai. Later, she joined the revolution and left Shanghai. She met old Master Zhu in the hospital in the base area. Since then, they had known each other for a lifetime. When old Master Zhu worked in Shanghai, the old lady's family helped him a lot. Most of the time, only the old lady lived in this old foreign-style house, with 2 nannies, a professional medical staff, and a guard. Her little daughter came here every day and sometimes lived here. Every weekend, those children also came to see her, so the old lady did not feel lonely. In recent years, the old lady lived in Shanghai most of the time. Especially during the festival, she was even more reluctant to go back to Beijing, because she would always be disturbed by a lot of people. The old lady could not refuse, so she had to hide in Shanghai. "Daughter, what time is it? Why haven't Ran and the others arrived yet? I'm afraid they must be starving." In the living room, an old lady with a head full of silver hair nagged at a charming middle-aged woman who had just come out of the kitchen. The old lady looked very thin, and her face was full of wrinkles. However, her clothes were very exquisite, and her hair was neatly combed. She did not look like an ordinary old lady. At this time, a young man sitting next to the old lady said, "Grandma, you have asked 6 times in half an hour. How old are my cousins? They won't get lost." The middle-aged woman stared at the young man and said, "You brat, how can you talk to your grandma like that? Isn't your grandma worried about your cousins?" The middle-aged woman stared at the young man and said, this was her ignorant and incompetent youngest son, who had not done anything decent until now. On the other side of the sofa, another beautiful woman in a gray sweater skirt smiled and said, "Grandma, I just called them. They have already left the overpass. They will probably arrive in a few minutes." The old lady was still worried and said, "Daughter, go to the kitchen and see if the food needs to be heated." "Mom, I'll go right now." The middle-aged woman turned around and walked into the kitchen. Of course, she knew that her mother loved her granddaughter the most. Moreover, her favorite great-granddaughter was also here. The beautiful woman looked at the old lady and asked, "Grandma, my cousin said she brought you a special New Year gift this time and said you would like it. What is it?" The old lady did not know whether to laugh or cry and said, "I really don't know. That girl refused to tell me." The young man muttered, "You will know later." At this time, Qin Shing's 2 cars had turned along Middle Fuxing Road into Sinan Road. Qin Shing said thoughtfully, "Sister, how far is it?" Because he was so familiar with this road, he saw the Sinan mansion from afar. Shangshan Ruoshui was on Sinan Road, but it was closer to Middle Huaihai Road. But Han Bing's company was in the Sinan mansion at the beginning. He often came to pick up Han Bing, but later moved to Xintiandi Bailey. Qin Ran pointed to the old foreign-style house in front of them and said, "It's in front." Qin Sheng was shocked again. He did not expect that his grandma lived here. He used to be so close to his grandma. Maybe he had seen her before, but they did not know each other's identity. Life was so dark and funny. When the 2 cars drove to the front of the old foreign-style house, the Buick MPV honked a few times, and the closed gray door was opened from the inside. Naturally, the old foreign-style house heard the noise. The beautiful woman stood up in a hurry and said, "Grandma, cousin is here." The old lady also wanted to stand up, but was stopped by the woman. She laughed and said, "Mom, just sit here. Let the two kids go out to pick them up. It's not a big deal." The beautiful woman in a gray sweater dress walked out of the house with the cynical young man and went out to pick up their cousins and children. When they came out, Qin ran, Zhu Qingyuan, and the others just got off. Now, come here and call me aunt." The beautiful woman smiled when she saw Now. Obviously, Now was very familiar with the beautiful woman. She was not shy at all. She directly trotted over and was directly picked up by the beautiful woman. Qin Ran's eldest sister-in-law was scared and hurriedly told her to be careful. The young man looked at Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan and said, "Hello, cousin, you finally arrived." If you didn't arrive, the old lady would ask again. After hearing this, Qin Ran said angrily, "Zhu Jiao, are you itching for a beating? Why didn't you go to the airport to pick us up? Cousin, you didn't let us pick you up. Now you blame me." The young man named Zhu Jiao laughed. At this time, the beautiful woman turned around and said hello to Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan. It was not until Qin Ran let the young man go. However, the beautiful woman and the young man looked at Qin Shing at the same time and asked confusedly, Cousin, who is this?" Qin Ran deliberately kept them guessing. "You will know in a while." This made them more curious. They could not help but look Qin Shing up and down. However, Qin Shing was very calm. He just smiled and nodded. They could not help but wonder if he was their cousin's boyfriend. This was too unexpected. When they walked into the living room and saw the old lady, Now wanted to get rid of the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman conveniently put her down. Then Now ran directly to the old lady and shouted in a tender and lovely voice, "Grandma." The old lady had asked her great-grandchildren to call her grandma. Therefore, after seeing Now, the old lady was very happy. She smiled lovingly and said, "My Now has grown taller again. Grandma, you have also grown taller." Now held the old lady in her arms and said happily, "Grandma, I missed you so much." When the old lady looked at Qin Ran had already said hello to her small aunt. Then she said coquettishly, "Grandma, I missed you so much." "Grandma missed you too," the old lady said lovingly. When she was old, she liked to be with children the most. It was very interesting to listen to them talking and laughing. At this time, Zhu Qingyuan and his wife also greeted the old lady and small aunt with their eldest son. The old lady and the middle-aged woman naturally praised them. At this time, the middle-aged woman looked up at Qin Shing, who was standing in the distance. She did not know who he was. Then she was stunned, because she found Qin Shing somewhat familiar. It seemed that she had seen him before, but she could not remember. At this time, the old lady also saw a strange young man standing not far away. She seemed to have never seen him before. She could not help but feel confused. Ran, who is this child?" Qin Ran looked at Qin Shing and the old lady and said meaningfully, "Grandma, this is my New Year gift for you. Guess who he is?" After Qin Shing walked into the living room, he saw the old lady sitting on the sofa with a kind face. He was stunned subconsciously and did not move at all. Looking at the old lady in front of him, Qin Shing felt very sad. This was the grandma who had loved him the most. This was the grandma who had missed him day and night for 20 years. Qin Shing remembered that he had seen his grandma's appearance in a photo some time ago. When he had left Beijing, his grandma had looked very spirited. Now 20 years had passed. Grandma was really old, and his grandfather could not wait to see him again. At the thought of this, Qin Shing felt really sad. He saw the old lady and everyone else staring at him. At this time, Qin Shing clenched his teeth and finally took 2 steps forward slowly. Then, under everyone's gaze, he knelt in front of the old lady without any warning. Then he kowtowed heavily and shouted in a trembling voice, "Grandma, Shing is back." He called her grandma and Xing. Chapter 410. Family Ties. Before the Spring Festival, Qin Ran had called the old lady and told her that she would bring a special gift to Shanghai on the third day of the Spring Festival. At that time, the old lady didn't take it seriously and thought it was just an ordinary gift. After all, her granddaughter often bought her many things. Although the old lady didn't lack anything and often told the kids not to buy random things, it was the children's good intentions. The kids always said, "Grandma, Grandma, you've loved us for most of our lives. Now that we've grown up, it's time for us to show our filial piety to you." The old lady was very happy to hear that and couldn't refuse. However, the old lady didn't expect that the special gift would be her favorite grandson, whom she had missed day and night for more than 20 years. The old lady didn't take it seriously, but her daughter's family kept it in mind. Because the old lady's family was in Shanghai, and old Master Zhu had also worked in Shanghai in the past, she introduced a local friend to her younger daughter. Unexpectedly, the two young people hit it off, so they got married and had children, and from then on, they took root in Shanghai. The parents of the young son-in-law had passed away, and the old lady lived alone in Shanghai. Therefore, the whole family of the young daughter came to Shanghai during the Spring Festival, except for the eldest son who was on duty in Xinjiang. On the Spring Festival Eve, the Sihiyuan and the old foreign-style house had a video chat. Although the family was not together, they had a good chat. At that time, Qin Xing was not there, and Qin Chang'an avoided them on purpose. Qin Ran told the old lady again, "Grandma, wait for a few more days. I'll send the special gift to you." Not until then did people in Shanghai know that Qin Ran had prepared a mysterious gift for the old lady. However, no matter how hard they asked, no one told them. Therefore, they could only wait for Qin Ran to come to Shanghai. So, today they finally saw this special gift. It was not an expensive gift, nor was it anything else, but a young man that they had never expected to see, a child that the Zhu and Qin families had been thinking about for more than 20 years. When Qin Xing walked over slowly and then knelt down and kowtowed, everyone was surprised. What did he mean? But when Qin Xing called out in a trembling voice, "Grandma, Xing is back," everyone instantly understood what was going on. The old lady burst into tears in an instant. She stared at the child kneeling on the ground in front of her in disbelief, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. She had said that the young man looked familiar, but it seemed that she had never seen him before. It did not occur to her that he would be her grandson. The name of the old lady's eldest daughter, who was also Qin Xing's mother, was Zhu Qinghuan, while the name of the old lady's youngest daughter was Zhu Qingwen, who was the outstanding middle-aged woman standing beside the old lady. Zhu Qingwen didn't care where she had seen him, because she already knew his identity. She just couldn't believe it. She asked absent-mindedly, Ran, is this really Xing?" Qin Ran knew that whether it was her grandmother or her aunt, no one dared to believe this fact. After all, her younger brother had been missing for more than 20 years. It was hard for anyone to accept that he had suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Qin Ran nodded and said, "Yes, Auntie, this is Qin Xing. He is also my New Year's gift to Grandma." When Zhu Qingwen heard Qin Xing's words, she still had some doubts. However, after seeing Qin Ran's solemn nod, Zhu Qingwen no longer doubted it. She, who had been a little confused at first, instantly lost control of her emotions. She forcibly covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Xing, it's really Xing. Xing is back." Zhu Qinghuan's exclamation made the old lady even more excited. She trembled and tried to get up. At the same time, she cried bitterly, "Xing, my Xing, you're finally back. You're finally back. I missed you so much. I've been waiting for you for more than 20 years. You're finally back. I was really afraid that I would never see you again." At this time, Qin Xing raised his head. His face was already covered with tears. After hearing his grandmother's exclamation, he couldn't stop crying. He quickly moved a few steps forward on his knees, hugged his grandmother, who was trying to get up, and said, "Grandma, Xing also missed you. It's all my fault. I'm not filial. I've made you wait for so many years. It's all my fault." The old lady also hugged her grandson tightly and cried bitterly, as if she wanted to vent all the feelings that had been accumulated for more than 20 years. The old lady and her favorite grandson recognized each other again after more than 20 years. They hugged each other and cried bitterly. This scene moved everyone present. Those who heard it were sad and those who saw it shed tears. After all, as the old lady said, she was afraid that she would never see her grandson again. This was familial love. Blood was thicker than water, and it would never fade because of time. The old lady was already more than 90 years old, and her health was not very good. Everyone was afraid that the old lady would be too excited and have an accident, so they hurried to comfort her. Everyone shed silent tears. Even Zhu Qingyuan, who was very calm, couldn't help wiping his tears secretly with his eyes red. Seeing that all the adults were crying, now also burst into tears. The whole living room was in a mess, but everyone was happy in their hearts. This should be called tears of joy. After a long time, the old lady's mood was finally comforted by everyone. Otherwise, if her mood fluctuated like this, she would definitely have an accident. However, the old lady was still holding Qin Xing for a long time with tears in her eyes. Zhu Qingwen, who was sitting by the side, held the old lady's hand and said, "Mom, Xing is back. You should be happy. Don't cry yourself to death. Otherwise, Xing will feel guilty." Qin Ran also echoed, "Grandma, my brother is back. He will never leave you again. During this period, he will stay in Shanghai to accompany you. No matter how many words you have to say, you can say them all in one go." Zhu Qingwen's daughter, Zhu Yi, stood behind the old lady and massaged her shoulders. "That's right, Grandma. You should pay more attention to your health. You still have a long way to go." At this time, the old lady let out a long sigh and said, "I know that you children are doing this for my own good. But I just can't help it. When I think of my grandson suffering so many years outside, I feel so sorry for him. I'm already over 90 years old. My life is complete. My only regret is Xing. Now, I finally made it to this day. Even if I have to die now, I will be satisfied. At least when I go to the underworld, I can tell your grandfather, 'Old man, Xing is back.' You can rest assured." As the old lady spoke, tears trickled down her cheeks again. Everyone else's eyes also turned red. They comforted the old lady again. Qin Xing also said in a hurry, "Grandma, don't say such words. You will live a long life. I have been away for more than 20 years and made you worry for more than 20 years. So I have to stay with you for more than 20 years." The old lady finally smiled and said, Okay. I won't say it. I will let Xing stay with me for another 20 years." Zhu Jiao, who was not far away, saw this scene and let out a long sigh. Grandma's wish was finally fulfilled. This was the second time that he had seen his grandmother so sad. The first time was when his grandfather had passed away. At that time, his grandmother had almost died. Zhu Jiao had no impression of this cousin in front of him. He had only seen his childhood photos. After all, when he was born, his cousin had disappeared. These years, he had often heard his grandmother's nagging, so he was more or less curious. Later, when his mother told him the story of his aunt and cousin, he learned about the past. Every time his grandmother mentioned his cousin and aunt, he would hurry to comfort his grandmother. In fact, Zhu Jiao and the others had already given up. After all, more than 20 years had passed. It was not easy to find a person in such a vast world. Many people thought that this child might have died. Only Qin Ran and Qin Chang'an believed that her brother was still alive. After all, he knew more about the past. The old lady finally stopped crying. She was no longer so emotional. Everyone was talking and laughing, which made the atmosphere less sad. However, the old lady was not willing to let go of Qin Shing's hand. She kept asking about many things, to which Qin Shing answered truthfully. Qin Ran added some things to the old lady's explanation. Not until then did the people in the old foreign-style house know that Qin Shing had been living in Xi'an these years. They also knew that Qin Shing had been back for more than 2 months, but he had not accepted his identity, which was similar to their feelings at the moment. Ran, I didn't expect you to keep it a secret for so long. It's such a big thing that your uncle didn't inform us in advance, so that we could inform your grandmother. Wasn't he afraid that your grandmother would be too excited and have an accident? I have to talk to him later, Zhu Qingwen said discontentedly. Qin Ran held her aunt's arm and said with a smile, "Aunt, it's not my fault." He knew it too late. Besides, Qin Shing observed mourning for my mother for a month and went back to Xi'an before the Spring Festival. So he could only come to Shanghai after the Spring Festival. What a filial child Xinger has suffered these years. Now that you're finally back, my poor eldest daughter can be completely relieved. Hearing this, the old lady let out a long sigh. This time, she managed to hold back her tears, because she knew that if she cried, these children would also be sad. At this time, Zhu Qingwen looked at Qin Shing and finally spoke out her doubt. "Xinger, did I see you somewhere before?" Zhu Qingyuan already knew that Qin Shing graduated from Fudan University. He said with a smile, "Aunt, you might have seen Qin Shing before, because he graduated from Fudan University." Oh, Shing actually studied in Fudan University. Now that you mention it, it's really possible. Zhu Qingwen was surprised. After all, she had been teaching in Fudan University these years. At this time, Qin Shing replied, "Aunt, actually we met before, but not in Fudan University." "Then where?" Hearing Qin Shing's words, Zhu Qingwen was very confused. The others also looked at Qin Shing curiously, waiting for his answer. Qin Shing said slowly, "Aunt, do you still remember Shangshan Ruoshui? The year before last, I was working in Uncle Zhang's Shangshan Ruoshui. At that time, Aunt and Sister Xue Qinyan came together, and we met there." Hearing Qin Shing's explanation, Zhu Qingwen suddenly remembered and exclaimed, Yes, I remember. It was in Shangshan Ruoshui. That time, Qinyan accompanied me there, and I met Xinger there." Qin Shing smiled and said nothing. He also did not expect that this middle-aged woman, who was treated politely by Sister Xue Qinyan at that time, turned out to be his aunt. This life was really interesting. Zhu Qingwen then asked, "Xinger, what's your relationship with Qinyan? I saw her before the Spring Festival." Chapter 4:11. Things remain the same, but people have changed. Chapter 4:10. Things remain the same. Sorry for the long wait. But I will continue to do so if I can keep it up. For anyone, helping someone in the hour of need was more memorable than the icing on the cake. But most people were only willing to do the icing on the cake, and few were willing to help someone in the hour of need. That was because the icing on the cake would definitely be rewarded. Although the reward might be small, helping someone in the hour of need was often a waste of effort. Of course, Qin Shing liked people who helped him in the hour of need. When he was in Shanghai, he was just an ordinary man. At that time, there were not many people who could really be kind to him, especially those big shots. Of course, Jiang Xianbang was not one of them. Jiang Xianbang chose to help him because of his grandfather. If not for his grandfather, Jiang Xianbang would not have invested in a young man like him. So in the end, only Xue Qinyan was there. A drop of water should be returned with a spring. Qin Shing thought so when he was not going his way. Now that his identity had completely changed, he still did not change his original thinking. This was the principle of being a man. Auntie, before I came back, she was the only one who could make me call her Sister Xing. She helped me so much, Qin Shing said sincerely, with a faint smile on his face. Oh! Zhu Qingwen was very surprised. She did not expect Xue Qingyan to have so many stories with Qin Xing. It seemed that with Xue Qingyan's status, it was impossible for her to have any interaction with Qin Xing in the past. Even if there was, it would not be heart to heart. Hearing this, Qin Ran was a little dissatisfied. She snorted and said, "Brother, do you mean that I am not good to you? Well, I want to meet Xue Qingyan when I have the chance." "Sister, why are you jealous? Didn't I say before I came back?" Qin Xing quickly explained. The others also knew that Qin Ran was deliberately joking, so they all laughed. At this time, the old lady began to stand on Qin Xing's side. She said angrily, "All right, Ran, don't bully your brother. You are the most important sister." Qin Ran was even more dissatisfied. She said coquettishly, "Grandma, you can't do this. Your Xing'er has just come back, and I've already lost your favor. Even if you have a change of heart, you can't change so quickly." The old lady, however, did not buy it. She replied confidently, "I've never changed my mind. You've known since you were young that Xing is the one I dote on the most, whether it's my grandson or granddaughter. Now he's finally back. I don't know how many hardships and grievances he has suffered outside in the past 20 years. Of course, I have to dote on him more. You've enjoyed so many years of happiness. What's there to complain about?" There was nothing wrong with what the old lady had said. Qin Ran didn't know how to respond. The others couldn't help laughing and didn't dare to help. Qin Ran had to admit defeat and said, "Grandma is right. We are all enjoying life, but your Xing is suffering. You should take good care of him. I was wrong." At this time, Zhu Qingwen realized that everyone was busy chatting and hadn't eaten yet. He didn't know whether he should laugh or cry. "Mom, I know you love Xing'er the most. Can you let your Xing'er fill his stomach first? Otherwise, he'll be really hungry later, and you'll feel sorry for him again." Upon hearing this, the old lady exclaimed, "Oh, I'm so old and muddled. I forgot that the children haven't eaten yet. Let's go and eat first." Qin Xing and his small aunt helped the old lady to the dining room. The rest of the people followed behind them. Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan arranged for the bodyguards to move the luggage and gifts downstairs. The Qin family still had some gifts for other people, which was another task for Qin Ran in this trip to Shanghai. They arranged for the bodyguards to send the gifts directly to Qin Ran's apartment in Lujiazui, Shanghai. When the dishes were all on the table, the old lady looked at these children with a smile. Finally, everyone was present. She remembered that every year when the whole family reunited, the old lady would think of her long-lost grandson, and then she would feel a little lost. She was really afraid that she couldn't hold on until that day. She was afraid that she would be too ashamed to face the old man and her eldest daughter. Now God finally let her wish come true. The old lady felt that her life was really complete. Even if God took her away now, she would have no regrets. The old lady looked at the children, and the children also looked at the old lady. On her right was Qin Xing, who was reluctant to let go. Below her were Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan's family, and on her left were her youngest daughter, Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi. The old lady said with satisfaction, "Don't just stand there. You must be hungry. Hurry up and eat." The children looked at each other and smiled. They had already discussed it. At this time, they shouted in unison, "Happy New Year to Mom, Grandma, 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 and everything goes well." The scene of 4 generations living under the same roof was so warm that all families would envy such a scene. The old lady was moved to tears again. She took out a handkerchief to wipe her blurry eyes and said, "Good, good, good, you are all good children." At the old lady's signal, they finally picked up the chopsticks to eat. This was not the best time for reunion. In the evening, when Zhu Qingwen's husband, who was in a high position, and Zhu Yi's husband and children came over, it would be a real reunion. The old lady might be so happy that she would faint at that time. The atmosphere at lunch was very lively. They chatted and joked, revealing each other's shortcomings. The old lady talked about the children's childhood, especially the trouble that Qin Shing had made in those years. Everyone laughed from ear to ear. After lunch, Zhu Qingwen left first. In the evening, she would come over with her husband, and let the children chat with the old lady. The old lady sat Qin Shing on the sofa in the living room and asked him to tell her how he had lived in the past 20 years. Qin Shing didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he naturally had to satisfy the old lady's request. Among them, only Qin Ran knew about it. Even Zhu Qingyuan didn't know much about it. Therefore, everyone gathered in the living room, eating fruits and snacks, and listening to Qin Shing's story. Qin Shing began to tell the story from the time he was taken to Zhongnan Mountains by his grandfather. After the old lady heard about old Master Qin, she said directly, "I will never forgive him in my life." Qin Ran knew that her grandmother had always been angry with the Qin family. Not to mention taking away Qin Shing's grandfather, even her father had been bullied over these years. No matter how hard she tried to ease the relationship, she couldn't get her grandmother's forgiveness. However, the thing she admired the most about her father was that he never complained, nor did he hate her grandparents at all. That was because her father had personally said that he didn't protect the Zhu family's daughter well and lost the Zhu family's grandson. Even if the Zhu family wanted to kill him, he wouldn't say a word. However, Qin Ran also knew that the grandson of the Zhu family was also her father's wife and son. In fact, he was more miserable than anyone else, but he was never willing to say it. Speaking of Zhongnan Mountains and the small village, everyone was most interested in the masters who lived in seclusion in Zhongnan Mountains. They didn't expect that Qin Shing would deal with these people since he was young. They were really curious about Qin Shing's life. Then Qin Shing talked about his foster parents' home, how they took care of him, and how they treated him. The old lady couldn't help saying, "Shing when I get better, go to Xi'an with me. I want to thank the Lin family in person for taking care of you for so many years." The others said one after another, "Grandma, you don't have to worry about these things. You just need to take care of yourself. We'll take care of the rest." Qin Shing wanted to say that he felt sorry for the Lin family, that he was not there when they were in trouble and needed him the most. This was the biggest regret in his life. However, Qin Shing held back in the end because he didn't need his grandmother to worry about this. As his eldest cousin had said in the car, if the old lady knew something, she might make a big deal out of it. Moreover, Qin Chang'an had already made arrangements for this, so Qin Shing held back. After talking about what happened in Xi'an, Qin Shing began to talk about his studies at Fudan University. They all sighed with emotion. They didn't expect that Qin Shing had been so close to them, especially to his small aunt and Zhu Jiao. Because his small aunt was a professor at Fudan University in Shanghai, and Zhu Jiao also graduated from Fudan University, but he was 2 years younger than Qin Shing. After talking about his studies at Fudan University, Qin Shing told the story of the 2 years when his grandfather passed away and he traveled all over the country according to his grandfather's last wish. When talking about these stories, Qin Shing was very excited, as if he had gone back to those 2 years. He had seen different sceneries and customs, met all kinds of interesting people, and of course all kinds of dangers and so on. Everyone listened attentively, worried about Qin Shing and envied him. So did the old lady, who was nervous and distressed. They didn't expect that Qin Shing's life was so wonderful, which really surprised them. At last Qin Shing talked about his work in the past 2 years, from Shanghai to Xiamen and then to Hangzhou, and how he was finally found by the Qin family. In the beginning, Qin Shing just brushed it off casually. After all, he didn't want to talk about those past events. In the latter part, he had already discussed it with his sister. Last time, he also told his uncle's family in the same way, and they didn't doubt him. Only the old lady, who had been through too many ups and downs and had seen all kinds of people, knew that her grandson was only saying nice things and deliberately hiding a lot of things. She could see it from her grandson's eyes, as well as the minute changes in his tone and movements. She sighed inexplicably. Of course, she knew that her grandson didn't want her to worry. This child was still so sensible. After talking about these past events, it was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The old lady had a lunch break every day. Because of Qin Xing, she had been holding on until now. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore and felt a little sleepy. Therefore, Zhu Yi and Qin Ran helped the old lady to go upstairs to have a rest. In the evening, they woke the old lady up when everyone arrived. Zhu Qingyuan said that he would take his wife and children to visit a relative who lived nearby, who was a cousin of his wife. It was estimated that he would come back soon. At this moment, only Qin Xing and Zhu Jiao were left in the living room. Zhu Jiao was full of curiosity about this cousin of his. He came over happily and said, "Cousin, although I've heard a lot about you, I really didn't expect to meet you." Qin Xing said with a smile, "Jiao, actually, we've met before. Do you still remember the underground parking lot of Yuerong Manor 2 years ago? At that time, my sister was with you. You were waiting for the elevator, and my friend and I happened to pass by you." After hearing Qin Xing's words, Zhu Jiao said coldly, "Damn, cousin, it can't be. We had such a thing. Why can't I remember?" Qin Xing said thoughtfully, "Of course you can't remember. After all, I was just an ordinary nobody at that time. Of course, I wouldn't attract your attention." Zhu Jiao laughed and said, "Cousin, don't say that. In our Zhu family, I'm not as favored as you. In the future, you still need to take care of me." After hearing this, Qin Xing knew what kind of character this cousin of his was. He was the kind of person who was familiar with everyone. At this time, Qin Ran and Zhu Yi came down. Qin Xing stood up and said to them, "Sister, cousin, I want to go out for a walk. After all, this place is very close to where I used to work." Qin Ran slightly frowned and said, "Do you want me to go with you?" Qin Xing shook his head and said, "No, I happen to meet a friend, and I will definitely be back before 6 o'clock." Qin Ran nodded thoughtfully, and Zhu Yi did not have any objection. Zhu Jiao wanted to go out with Qin Xing, but Qin Xing also smiled and declined. Everyone left Qin Xing alone. After coming out of the old foreign-style house, Qin Xing rode a public bike at the gate and went along Sinan Road from south to north, to Shangshan Ruoshui. Chapter 4:12. Chapter 4:11. Why are you smiling? There was only one update today. Although Qin Xing had stayed in this city for 4.5 years, he really had not taken a good look around the city. The name card of a city was those landmark high-rise buildings, especially in a new city like Shanghai. If someone mentioned it, they would first think of the high-rise buildings in the Pudong New area. But the essence of a city was those hidden streets and alleys in the market, which was the real taste of a city. Qin Xing was familiar with Sinan Road. He rode the shared bicycle along Sinan Road to the north, and arrived not far from Shangshan Ruoshui in a few minutes. Qin Xing parked the shared bicycle by the roadside and stood under a tree, looking at the place where he stayed when he first arrived in Shanghai. For Qin Xing, the place that used to be very familiar to him was somewhat strange now. Mizhen, Yu Fengji, and Liu Yuan's group of closest friends had all been tricked into coming to Hangzhou by him. Consequently, there were no old friends here, only enemies. Thinking of those friends who followed him to Hangzhou, Qin Xing felt sorry for them more or less. He did not know how they were doing now that he had left Hangzhou for more than 2 months. There were cars going in and out of Shangshan Ruoshui occasionally. After all, it was only afternoon, there should not be too many customers. Moreover, he heard from Mizhen that the current Shangshan Ruoshui was far less lively than it was in Jiang Xianbang's time, and its prestige was declining. It would not take long for it to become an ordinary clubhouse restaurant. Qin Xing stayed here for a while and felt bored. He did not meet any acquaintances, such as the manager who did not get along with him, Wang Haichao, who was said to be the deputy general manager now. There were also two key figures who cooperated with Yan Chaozong to set up the death trap in Mount Zhihua. One was the person in charge of Shangshan Ruoshui, Han Jingdong, and the other was the youngest son of boss Yi Myung. Qin Shing remembered these two people very clearly. He would take revenge sooner or later. Since he had come to the door of Shangshan Ruoshui, of course, Qin Shing would think of Jiang Xianbang, who first promoted him. When he last contacted him, it seemed that he was staying in Singapore, and he did not know how he was doing now. Of course, there was also Qing the adopted daughter of Jiang Xianbang. She was a teacher at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music and played the zither very well. Jiang Xianbang didn't know how she was doing now. When Uncle Jiang left, he asked him to take care of her, but he didn't even take care of himself. This place was close to Middle Huaihai Road, so it was not far from Jiang Xianbang's old foreign-style house. The old friend that Qin Shing wanted to meet was Jiang Xianbang's adopted daughter, Qing. He didn't know if she was still in the old villa during the spring festival. Maybe she was not in Shanghai anymore. Maybe she was spending the spring festival abroad with Uncle Jiang. However, Qin Shing did not have Qing-er's contact information, nor could he remember Uncle Jiang's phone number. After all, there were less than 20 contacts on this phone, so Qin Shing could only try his luck. After taking a taxi for a few minutes, they arrived at Jiang Xianbang's old foreign-style house. The door was still closed, and Qin Shing could not tell if there was anyone inside. However, there were couplets pasted on the outside, which made Qin Shing somewhat relieved. Even if Qing wasn't there must be someone staying in the old foreign-style house. That person could contact Qing or Uncle Jiang. Qin Shing walked to the door slowly, pressed the doorbell, and waited for the door to open. The old foreign-style house was still decorated as before, but the collectibles had been disposed of, leaving only some worthless decorations. At this moment, a woman in a grey hemp cheongsam was sitting on the sofa, reading a book quietly. The woman's hair was tied up casually, which was a little messy. There was a small stove beside her, on which there was an old iron kettle, which was used to boil tea. The kettle was made by a famous craftsman, and was collected by Jiang Xianbang years ago. However, it was not put on the shelf, but directly used to boil tea. In front of the woman in the grey hemp cheongsam was a Chinese zither, on which there was an open music score. It seemed that she had just finished playing a new song. The sunlight shone on the woman through the window, and the smoke curled up from the kitchen chimney, which made her look special. However, such a woman was a little out of place in the atmosphere of Shanghai. Hearing the doorbell, the woman frowned slightly, put down the book, and said in a low voice, "Uncle Wang, see who's here. If it's Liang Chen, tell him I'm not here." Uncle Wang was the housekeeper of this old foreign-style house. Even though Jiang Xianbang was not in Shanghai, Uncle Wang had been staying here all the time, taking care of Qing who was unwilling to go to Hong Kong. Uncle Wang turned on the surveillance video at the door. From the video, he found Qin Shing somewhat familiar. After all, Qin Shing had been to the old foreign-style house several times. However, Uncle Wang's memory was not good, so he could not recall it. After all, Qin Shing had not been here for so long. However, he knew that Qin Shing must be here for Jiang Xianbang. After all, many people did not know whether Jiang Xianbang had come back or not. Some old friends came here to try their luck, and at the same time, to inquire about the news. Uncle Wang walked out at a moderate pace, then opened the small door. He stared at Qin Shing for a while and asked calmly, "Who are you looking for?" When the small door was opened, Qin Shing was finally relieved. At least the door was not closed. As long as someone was here, he could contact Qing or Uncle Jiang. Seeing that it was the housekeeper of the old foreign-style house, Qin Shing said with a smile, "Uncle Wang, don't you remember me? I'm Qin Shing. The year before last, I often came to see Uncle Jiang. When Uncle Jiang left Shanghai, He asked me to take care of Qing Er. Being reminded by Qin Shing, Uncle Wang remembered instantly. He said in a hurry, Oh, I remember. You're Qin Shing. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. But you're here for old Jiang, right? He is still abroad. Qin Shing said with a faint smile, I know he is still abroad. Today, I'm here for Qing Er. I haven't been back to Shanghai for a long time. I don't know how Qing Er is doing now. Uncle Jiang asked me to take care of her, but I left Shanghai because of some trifles. I didn't fulfill my responsibility. This time, I came back to Shanghai, so I came here to take a look. Uncle Wang, is Qing Er there? Or did she go abroad to accompany Uncle Jiang? Hearing this, Uncle Wang said in a hurry, Yes, Qing Er is here. I'll take you to see her now. She is so stubborn. She insisted on staying in Shanghai to accompany me. She also said that this is her home. How could there be no one at home during the Spring Festival? Hearing Uncle Wang's words, Qin Shing was surprised. Originally, he came to try his luck today. He didn't expect his luck to be so good. It seemed that after returning to Beijing, his luck was getting better and better. Therefore, Uncle Wang asked Qin Shing to come in quickly. Then, he led Qin Shing into the house. The woman in the gray hemp Chong Sam was naturally Qing Er. Qing Er had heard the footsteps outside and was curious about who was coming. At this time, Qin Shing and Uncle Wang walked in. Uncle Wang said excitedly, Girl, look who's here. Qing Er looked in the direction of the door. When she saw Qin Shing behind Uncle Wang, she was directly stunned. The book in her hand fell to the ground subconsciously. She didn't expect it to be Qin Shing. Meeting an old friend again, she was speechless for a moment. Qin Shing walked slowly to Qing Er and said with a faint smile, Qing Er, long time no see. How are you? Qing Er asked absent-mindedly, How come it's you? Why are you here? Uncle Wang nodded at Qin Shing and left sensibly. You guys talk first. I'll go upstairs to pack my things. Then, he left with a smile. Qin Shing stood in front of Qing Er and looked at this old friend whom he had not seen for more than a year. She seemed to be more extraordinary and refined than before. Of course, she was also more beautiful, just that she was less worldly. I didn't expect to see you here. I thought you and Uncle Jiang were abroad for the New Year. Unfortunately, I changed my phone and lost your contact with Uncle Jiang. After returning to Shanghai today, I could only try my luck, Qin Shing explained with a smile. Although Qing Er was very surprised to see Qin Shing, she didn't have a good impression of Qin Shing at the beginning. They always bickered when they were together. Qing Er looked down on Qin Shing's wanton and unruly behavior, and Qin Shing never spoiled Qing Er's coldness. What's the matter? Qing Er asked with a frown. Uncle Jiang had told her to discuss with Qin Shing if there was anything. However, when she really had something to do, she couldn't contact Qin Shing no matter how hard she tried. This made Qing Er even more dissatisfied with Qin Shing. Qin Shing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Anyway, we're friends. It's not good for you to be so serious. Let me sit down first. At least let me have a cup of tea. Qing Er said casually, Oh, then sit down. Qin Shing sat on the sofa next to Qing Er. Qing Er poured him a cup of tea. Qin Shing took it and thanked her softly. Then he looked up at Qing Er and said, We haven't seen each other for more than a year. How are you? Whether it's good or bad, what does that have to do with you? Now can you tell me what's the matter? If you're just here to catch up, I think we have nothing to talk about. Qing Er's attitude was still so cold. Now Qin Shing only cared about his family and friends. He treated Qing Er as a friend, but it seemed that Qing Er didn't treat him as a friend. This made Qin Shing very uncomfortable. Of course, he would not spoil her. So Qin Shing stopped smiling and said, Of course I'm not here for you. I just lost Uncle Jiang's contact number. I want to call him and talk about something. What is it? Qing Er didn't intend to give Qin Shing Uncle Jiang's number. Qin Shing said slowly, For example, how to let him go back to China? What? You have a way to let Uncle Jiang come back? Is it true? Qing heard the news and stood up excitedly. She stared at Qin Shing and asked with a stunned face. Qin Shing didn't expect that Qing would have such a big reaction. He sighed on purpose and said, "Originally, I wanted to talk to you about it after meeting my old friend. I didn't expect that you would be so cold to me. It seems that I'm asking for trouble. Sorry to bother you." After that, Qin Shing put down the teacup and was ready to leave. Qing was a little anxious. She couldn't help but regret her indifference to Qin Shing just now. She directly grabbed Qin Shing and said, "Qin Shing, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I apologize to you. Do you really have a way to let Uncle Jiang come back?" Qin Shing still snorted and said, "You don't need to know that. Qin Shing, I'm sorry. I'm really wrong. Just tell me." Qing wouldn't let Qin Shing go. Although she didn't know whether what Qin Shing said was true or not, she had to try. Qin Shing turned his head and stared at Qing with a smile. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." Qin Shing nodded heavily. Qin Shing stared at Qing with some bad intentions. Qing couldn't help but take 2 steps back. She was afraid that Qin Shing would have some bad ideas. Qin Shing said, "Then smile." Chapter 413. Wait for my news. Qin Shing was not a bad person, and he had never offended Qing. Why was she so cold to him, and kept her distance from him? When Qin Shing came to the old foreign-style house for the first time, he teased Jiang Xianbang about Qing saying that Jiang Xianbang had a mistress in his house. Qing happened to hear it. After listening to Jiang Xianbang's explanation, Qin Shing found out that Qing was just the daughter of an old friend of his who had passed away. She could be considered as his half-daughter. He also apologized to Qing but Qing did not forgive him and directly regarded him as a playboy. Qin Shing had challenged Qing's bottom line. She hated it when people talked about Uncle Jiang like that. Although Uncle Jiang had many women, he really treated her like his own daughter and didn't have any evil intentions. Therefore, Qing had been disgusted with Qin Shing since then. Every time they met, they would quarrel. She knew that Uncle Jiang wanted to match her with Qin Shing, but she would never fall in love with a man like Qin Shing. Therefore, when she saw Qin Shing again after a year and a half, Qing was a little surprised at first. After she came to her senses, she returned to her original attitude and ignored Qin Shing. However, when Qin Shing told her that he had a way to bring Uncle Jiang back, Qing's attitude changed immediately. However, Qin Shing was wronged and wanted to leave, so Qing had to beg for mercy. To her, she was willing to do anything as long as Uncle Jiang could come back and stop him from wandering alone in the outside world. But at this moment, Qing didn't expect that Qin Shing would make such an unreasonable request. She didn't know how to respond. "You're being unreasonable." Qing stared at Qin Shing angrily after she came to her senses. Qin Shing shrugged and said, "Oh, then I'll leave first. I'm sorry to disturb you from drinking tea, reading books, and playing the piano. Bye." Then Qin Shing turned around and was ready to leave again. He wanted to see whether Qing would lower her head and apologize to him. He didn't believe that he couldn't cure this beauty's bad habit. Qing grabbed Qin Shing's arm again and said, "Qin Shing, as long as you can bring Uncle Jiang back, I'll do anything you want. But can you change your request?" Qin Shing squinted at the lovely Qing. She was indeed the kind of goddess that every man dreamed of. He said playfully, "You'll do anything?" Qing nodded without hesitation. Her eyes were firm. Qin Shing said thoughtfully, "Okay, then you can be my lover." His words stunned Qing again. She did not expect that Qin Shing's demands were getting more and more excessive. Being bullied by Qin Shing, Qing finally could not stand it anymore. Biting her lower lip, her eyes started to turn red and tears gradually formed in her eyes. Without Uncle Jiang's protection, she realized how helpless she was and how she was always bullied. This time, it was Qin Sheng's turn to panic. He couldn't help but feel that this joke had gone too far. He really had to give in to this woman. She asked him to laugh and make him her lover. What was she thinking? He had no choice but to admit defeat and say, "Grand Aunt, it's my fault. I was just joking with you. I originally came to see you, my old friend. Who asked you to be so cold to me, as if I owe you a few 100 million?" Qin Sheng really did not dare to provoke this beauty. If Uncle Jiang found out later, he could not guarantee that he would chase him all over the street with a kitchen knife. Qing did not stop there. Her delicate hands had already been clenched into fists, and her tears flowed down and dripped on the floor. Thinking of Uncle Jiang's love and devotion to her over the years, and how much she had suffered during the year when she met Uncle Jiang in Hong Kong, he seemed to have aged a lot. Qing couldn't bear it anymore, so she said with a trembling voice, "As long as you can make Uncle Jiang come back, I'll promise you." Of course, Qing knew that Qin Sheng was only joking when he asked her to laugh, but the latter part might be half true. Qin Sheng was completely confused. What was going on? He really wanted to slap himself. Why did he make such a joke? Didn't he know that she used to treat him like this? What should he do now? "I was really joking. I didn't mean that. Even without you, I will find a way to make Uncle Jiang come back. After all, he did me a favor." Qin Sheng replied again. He almost knelt on the ground and begged this grand aunt to stop crying. She was just an ordinary woman. As long as she could repay Uncle Jiang's kindness, it was nothing. So she thought that Qin Sheng did not believe her. She said again, "As long as you can make Uncle Jiang come back, I will keep my promise. It has nothing to do with Uncle Jiang." Damn it. Qin Sheng directly burst out a curse. It was getting more and more confusing. Qin Sheng simply did not want to talk nonsense anymore. Otherwise, with this woman's stubborn character, no matter how much he said, it would be useless. He could only do it perfunctorily for now, and then directly forget about it. Okay. Whatever you say, I believe you, okay? So are you going to listen to me now?" Qin Sheng said helplessly. Qing nodded and said, "Okay. Then don't cry anymore. Wipe your tears and smile, or I will really leave," Qin Sheng said firmly. It seemed that if Qing did not agree, he would immediately turn around and leave without any hesitation. Qing gently wiped the tears on her face, took a few deep breaths to adjust herself, and then looked at Qin Sheng with a not-so-perfect smile. She was not smiling for Qin Sheng, but she was smiling from the bottom of her heart, thinking that she could make Uncle Jiang come back. She was like a pear blossom in tears just now, but now she was as beautiful as a flower. This difference made Qin Sheng a little stunned. After all, Qing was really beautiful when she smiled. A woman's smile and tears were the most threatening weapons to men. "Yeah, you are the most beautiful when you smile." Qin Sheng laughed. Qing glared at Qin Sheng, but she did not dare to be so cold to him anymore. She looked at Qin Sheng with a perfunctory smile, but in her heart, she still despised Qin Sheng. He was no different from those dirty men who wanted to get her. "Okay, now can you let me sit down and we can have a good talk?" Finally, this matter was over. Qin Sheng sighed and said. He was really tired. Qing nodded. After Qin Sheng sat down, she poured a cup of tea for him again. She looked at Qin Sheng expectantly, waiting for his explanation. Qin Sheng picked up the teacup and said thoughtfully, "When Uncle Jiang left, he asked me to take care of you, but I didn't do my duty. I have to apologize to you. Because at that time, something happened to me. I left Shanghai in a mess and almost lost my life. I was lying in bed for a few months. So I hope you can understand that I was really helpless." After Qin Sheng finished his explanation, Qing face changed slightly. She had a complicated look in her eyes. She did not expect so many things to happen to Qin Sheng. She was really angry when she could not get in touch with Qin Sheng. Qing said lightly, Okay, I know. It's not your fault. In the past year, I have been through a lot. I have been through ups and downs. Until today, I finally have the strength to come back to Shanghai. I always remember what happened to Uncle Jiang, but I didn't have the ability before. Seeing that he is still wandering outside at such an old age, I feel very sad. Now that I have some ability, I want to give it a try. As for whether I can really make him come back, I can't guarantee it. I can only say that I will try my best. Qin Sheng said very seriously. This time, he was not joking at all. Seeing Qin Sheng's serious look, Qing Er felt a little disappointed, but she could understand. After all, Uncle Jiang's matter was so serious. It had only been more than a year. How capable could Qin Sheng be? Then what can I do for you? Qing Er said softly. Even if Uncle Jiang could not come back in the end, she still had to give it a try. How would she know if she did not try? Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, You can call Uncle Jiang now. I don't know the specific situation. I have to figure out what is going on first, then I can take the right medicine. Okay. Qing Er nodded. Then she found her phone, walked aside and dialed Uncle Jiang's number in Sydney. He had been living there recently. Qin Sheng did not follow her. He knew that Qing Er must have something to explain, so he just quietly drank tea and waited. In front of the floor-to-ceiling window, Qing Er looked serious for a while, and then she cried and laughed. It seemed that she had endless things to say to Uncle Jiang. Of course, the most important thing was to explain Qin Sheng. A few minutes later, Qing Er slowly walked over with her phone. She handed it to Qin Sheng and said, Here you are. Tell Uncle Jiang. Qin Sheng took the phone and teased him with a smile. Uncle Jiang, where are you having fun recently? Jiang Xianbang snorted and said, You are not dead yet. I was going to sacrifice you in Australia. I heard about what happened to you in Hangzhou. You are really an unkillable cockroach. You offended so many people, but you still managed to escape alive. I really have a whole new level of respect for you. Jiang Xianbang and Qin Sheng got along like this. They did not exchange greetings, but only made fun of each other. But Jiang Xianbang was really surprised that Qin Sheng could come back to Shanghai and go to the old foreign-style house. Moreover, Qin Sheng wanted to find a way to bring him back. He really did not know what this guy had experienced after disappearing for a few months. Good people don't live long, but scourges live for thousands of years. Scourges like me, of course, can't die. Qin Sheng laughed happily. Jiang Xianbang did not talk nonsense anymore. He asked directly, Where have you been these months? How did you deal with the things in Hangzhou? Otherwise, you would not have dared to come back to Shanghai openly. This is a slap in the face to the Yin family. Maybe you would have to come back standing up and leave lying down. Qin Sheng scolded angrily, F***CKU. Can't you hope for something good from me? Ha ha, okay, tell me about it first. Jiang Xianbang laughed out loud. From the beginning to the end, he believed that Qin Sheng would definitely be outstanding. This was not because he believed in Qin Sheng, but because he recognized the old man. Qin Sheng explained slowly, The things in Hangzhou have not been solved. I have been in Beijing during this time. As for why I dare to come back, I don't need to explain. Anyway, I am not tired of living. You only need to know that it is not that they can't find trouble with me, but that I can't find trouble with them. After listening to Qin Sheng's words, Jiang Xianbang was shocked. He did not know whether Qin Sheng was bragging or he really had this confidence. Qin Sheng knew that Jiang Xianbang must be dubious, so he did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he continued, Let's not talk about these things. You will know in the future. Let's talk about something serious. I think Qing Er has told you. Yes, but do you know how big my problem is? You dare to help me? Even if you have a big shot behind you, they may not get involved in this. Jiang Xianbang squinted and said. He had been in such a situation, but in the end, he had to pack up and run away. How capable could Qin Sheng be? Qin Shing said meaningfully. Then you have to tell me first. Then I will know whether I have this ability or not, right? Okay, then I will tell you in detail. Jiang Xianbang sighed and took it seriously. After all, he had to try. Who would know if he did not try? Therefore, in the next half an hour, Jiang Xianbang told Qin Shing in detail all the inside stories about his problem, how many people and things were involved, how many key points, and so on. Qin Shing just listened quietly and occasionally asked about the things he did not understand. Qing kept pouring tea for Qin Shing, and then looked at Qin Shing, who was extremely serious. It seemed that this man was not as bad as she thought. When Jiang Xianbang finished telling him everything, Qin Shing's face was very cold. It was as complicated as he had expected, and the people involved were really not ordinary. This also made Qin Shing understand why Jiang Xianbang could reach this position. Chapter 4:14. What was his rank? Jiang Xianbang had been wandering outside for more than a year. First, he stayed in Hong Kong and waited for news. After all, Hong Kong was everyone's safe haven. It was also a gathering place for all kinds of information. It was also full of brokers from all walks of life. Otherwise, how could the Four Seasons Hotel's room price be so high? After all, Wangbei Tower was home to many local bigwigs who did not dare to go back. These people had plenty of money, but they were no longer as omnipotent as they were in China. At this time, they only had money. Many people now knew that they couldn't do whatever they wanted with money. The only thing they lacked was a plane ticket to return home safely. They had money, and these people had connections. Naturally, they colluded with each other. However, many people were involved in too many things. Not everyone could do it, so many people were cheated. Especially many people knew that they would be cheated, but they still spent a lot of money. Because they had to try to know what was the use of keeping so much money. Jiang Xianbang was the same. He spent a lot of money in Hong Kong. In the end, not only did he not settle the matter, but Hong Kong was also not safe. He could only run to Singapore and Australia. Jiang Xianbang didn't seem to have any hope of returning to China. It was still a long way off. He finally understood why Yu Guangzhong wrote that poem, Nostalgia. Now he was the true portrayal of it. However, Jiang Xianbang did not expect that there would be a change today. This change came from a young man he did not expect, Qin Shing. Jiang Xianbang did not know what Qin Shing had experienced during this period, but since he could bring it up, Jiang Xianbang believed him. Based on his understanding of Qin Shing, and the fact that Qin Shing had more or less known about this matter, if there was no possibility, Qin Shing would not bring it up. Therefore, no matter whether it would work or not, Jiang Xianbang had to give it a try. At least there was hope. Okay, then I will wait for your news. Jiang Xianbang heard this answer and nodded silently. He did not ask for long. He could wait for 3 to 5 years. Qin Shing replied quietly, Uncle Jiang, then take care of yourself outside. Well, anyway, thanks. Jiang Xianbang, who was sitting on the beach, took a sip of his cocktail and smiled bitterly. In the past, he was so glorious. Now, although he was not so down and out, he seemed to have nothing but money. He was an uneducated man who did not even know English. Living abroad was torture. It was too King lonely. Qin Shing found it funny as he said, Uncle Jiang, we are too polite. Jiang Xianbang laughed and said, Qin Shing, since you have returned to Shanghai, help me take care of Qing in the future. I can't do anything about it. Glancing at Qin Shing sighed and said, I'd better not. I'm afraid of her. Qing frowned slightly and stared at Qin Shing. She did not know what her uncle had said on the phone. Jiang Xianbang laughed out loud. He knew that these two people were quarrelsome, but this was also good. Feelings just came out when they quarreled. So he said disapprovingly, Okay, anyway, I'll leave it to you. If anything happens to her, I'll hold you responsible. Well, you guys talk. I'll hang up first. Contact me later. Qin Shing casually said a few words and then hung up. After Qin Shing hung up the phone, Qing immediately walked to Qin Shing and asked, "What did Uncle say to you? What do you want to know?" Qin Shing asked back. This woman really needed to be trained well. Let's see how she would be arrogant in the future. Qing stared at Qin Shing and said, "What do you want to say?" Originally, Qin Shing wanted to reply, "Why should I tell you?" However, he felt that it was almost time and he had to rush back. After all, he had heard from his sister that his uncle-in-law and his cousin-in-law would come over at night. He couldn't not go back when they arrived, right? Nothing much. He just asked me to take good care of you. He is abroad and worried about you, Qin Shing said honestly. Qing pouted and said angrily, "Do I need you to take care of me? Haha, that's great. I can't ask for more. After all, it saves me a lot of trouble." Qin Shing shrugged and stood up. "Since I'm done with my business, I won't bother you anymore. See you next time." After saying that, he stood up and walked out. Qing did not intend to keep Qin Shing. After all, this man made her very uncomfortable. Out of sight, out of mind. However, when Qin Shing was about to walk out, she suddenly remembered that she did not have Qin Shing's contact information. How could she find Qin Shing in the future? At least she had to ask her uncle about the progress of the matter. So she hurriedly shouted, "Hey, wait!" Qin Shing heard her shout and stopped subconsciously. Then he turned around and asked, "Anything else? Are you reluctant to leave me?" Qing walked over quickly and did not care about Qin Shing's flirting at all. She directly handed the phone to Qin Shing. Qin Shing said, "Leave your phone number. Otherwise, how can I find you? I thought you didn't want to see me anymore." Qin Shing took the phone and dialed his own number. After confirming that it was connected, he hung up. After finishing the last thing, Qin Shing handed the phone back to Qing. Then he waved his hand and directly left. He stopped a car at the gate and went to the old villa on Sinan Road. Qing did not see Qin Shing out. She just stared at the yard in a daze. She thought about all the bits and pieces she had with this man. It seemed that he did not do anything wrong except for his occasional flirting. Otherwise, her uncle would not have appreciated him so much. Qing could not help but sigh. "I really don't understand him. Forget it. I'd better treat him better in the future. After all, I have something to ask of him." At this time, Uncle Wang, the housekeeper, came down. He heard the sound of the door opening and came out. Seeing Qing in a daze, he wondered, "Girl, has Qin Shing left?" Qing came back to herself and nodded slightly. Uncle Wang muttered, "I thought he was going to stay for dinner. He just left like this. What a kid." However, Qing I'm long-winded. In fact, I think Qin Shing is quite good. You can think about it. Hearing Uncle Wang's words, Qing directly blushed and said, "Uncle Wang, what are you talking about?" After saying that, Qing fled and ran upstairs to her room. When Qin Shing returned to the old foreign-style house on Sinan Road, his grandmother had not woken up yet. His cousin's family had come back. His small aunt and others had not arrived yet. The others were chatting in the living room. Seeing Qin Shing coming back, Qin Ran smiled and asked, "You're back. Did you see your friend?" Qin Shing walked over, sat down and replied, "Yes. I thought she was not at home, so I went there to try my luck. I didn't expect that she was at home." Zhu Jiao walked to Qin Shing on purpose, lowered his head slightly, took a deep breath, and said softly, "There is a light fragrance of a woman. It is not the smell of perfume, but a unique body fragrance, mixed with the smell of tea and agarwood. Cousin, your friend is definitely a beauty, and she is a quiet person." Qin Shing did not take it seriously at first, and the others were also wondering what Zhu Jiao was doing. After Zhu Jiao finished his words, Qin Shing was confused. If his brothers and sisters were not present, he would have shouted, "What the F***ck?" Qin Ran, Zhu Qingyuan, and his wife also looked incredulous, but they were somewhat skeptical. Cousin, I guessed it right? Tell me honestly, who is this beauty? No wonder you don't want me to go with you. You are afraid that I will steal her. Although I like beautiful women, a gentleman loves beautiful women, and I will never steal her. Zhu Jiao said proudly. He was known as the little prince of the nightclub in the Bund. It was just that his family was stricter these days. Zhu Yi knew that his cynical brother had such a skill. In his words, he could accurately smell what kind of perfume a woman was using, and almost never made a mistake, unless it was a perfume that had just come on the market and he did not know about it. Every time, he could guess what kind of perfume a woman was using, and he used this trick to chase after many girls. Zhu Yi also stared at Qin Sheng and joked, Qin Sheng, tell us quickly. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that Zhu Jiao and Xia Ding could play together. He laughed and said, Jiao, I really admire you. Who did you learn this from? My friend is indeed beautiful and quiet. She is a teacher at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. She likes drinking tea and playing the piano. She is proficient in several kinds of Eastern and Western musical instruments. She doesn't have a boyfriend yet. I don't have a chance. I will introduce you to her another day. Maybe you two will be together. Ha 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 ha, cousin, forget it. I already have a girlfriend. If she finds out, I'll be dead. Zhu Jiao laughed out loud. But he also heard that Qin Sheng also had a girlfriend, so he just passed it off as a joke. Qin Sheng smiled. When it was almost time, Qin Ran went upstairs to see whether her grandmother had woken up or not. The old lady had a regular schedule, and her nap was basically 1.5 hours. As expected, when she went upstairs, the old lady had already woken up. After the old lady finished washing, when Qin Ran helped her down, the living room became lively again. The whole old foreign-style house was filled with all kinds of laughter. The old lady was still sitting by Qin Sheng's side. She held Qin Sheng's hand and said, Shenger, I thought it was just a dream. Fortunately, it was not a dream. I was so scared. The old lady's words made Qin Sheng quite sad. He held the old lady's hand tightly and said, Grandma, you will get used to it gradually. I will always be with you and never leave. Good boy, I'm afraid that I can't hold on for long. I don't know how many days I can stay with you. It's all God's fault. The old lady shed tears again as she said. Everyone hurried to comfort the old lady. They really dared not to make her sad anymore. This kind of mood fluctuation was too much, and they were really afraid that something bad would happen to the old lady. After a while, Zhu Yi's husband and child came over. Zhu Yi introduced Qin Sheng to her husband with a smile. Her husband had only heard of this cousin. He was quite surprised when Zhu Yi called him and told him about it today. Qin Sheng smiled and chatted with this cousin-in-law, who worked in the Pudong New area. Then he gave a red packet to the child and waited for the arrival of his uncle-in-law, who was in a high position. When the kitchen informed them that dinner was ready and asked when they would finish eating, they finally heard the sound of a car outside. Zhu Qingwen and her husband came late. Chapter 4:15. It's a little fierce. It's the end of the month. Do you have a monthly ticket? If the relationship between the Qin family and the Zhu family hadn't been so tense, the Zhu family and the Qin family would have been more powerful than many rich families. However, everything had its pros and cons. It was precisely because of the close relationship between the Qin family and the Zhu family that Qin Chang'an had less scruples. Similarly, the Zhu family did not need to be scrupulous about anything. At least, when the big shots of the Zhu family continued to advance, they would not be the weak point that held them back. The Zhu family could be divided into two Zhu families. One was the Zhu family where the old lady lived, and the other was the Zhu family where Zhu Qingwen's husband lived. This was also the reason why Zhu Qingwen's children were all surnamed Zhu. It didn't mean that her husband married into the Zhu family. Qin Chang'an was in the business world, while Zhu Weiguo was in the military. Zhu Qingwen's husband was the real successor of old Master Zhu. He was the representative of the Zhu family in the political circle. Although he had been through a lot in recent years and had been suppressed several times, fortunately, he had accumulated a lot of experience and had a bright future. The relationship between the Zhu family and the Qin family had been awkward before. However, after Qin Xing came back, the relationship seemed to be integrated again. Qin Xing didn't know what effect it would have on others, but at least for Qin Xing, a small fry who had just returned to the big family, it was definitely beneficial. Because if Qin Xing wanted to take revenge, he would definitely use his identity and resources. The more powerful the background of the Zhu family and the Qin family, the easier it would be. However, Qin Xing was not clear about many things. As time went by, the mystery was gradually revealed. Today, he was going to reveal the identity of his uncle-in-law. He only knew that his uncle-in-law was working in Shanghai, but he didn't know which position he was in. However, after his sister's words, Qin Xing could finally make a bold guess. Except for the old lady who was holding Now in her arms, the others all went out to welcome the middle-aged man who had just made a breakthrough before the Spring Festival. In the whole Zhu family and the Qin family, only Zhu Weiguo and Qin Chang'an could be on equal footing with him. The middle-aged man could only spare a short hour to attend the family gathering. During the Spring Festival, he was busier than usual. However, family and kinship were indispensable to anyone. Today, these children had come all the way from Beijing, so he naturally had to show up. It was an ordinary Audi A6L without a special license plate. The driver and secretary sat in the front, while Zhu Qingwen and the middle-aged man sat behind. The two of them got out of the car unhurriedly, while the secretary and the driver continued to wait in the car. Both Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi were proud of their father. Although they didn't spend much time with him, they were used to it and could understand him. Especially every time they saw their father working until late at night, they were more distressed than anyone else. Unfortunately, they couldn't share their father's worries. The only thing they could do was not to let their father worry. Zhu Qingyuan, who was also pursuing an official career, could understand his uncle better. First of all, he also had a lot of helplessness. Second, his father, Zhu Weiguo, was almost the same as his uncle, or maybe even busier than his uncle. He had very little time to spend with his family every year, not to mention being busier during the Spring Festival. After the middle-aged man got out of the car with a smile, the others quickly walked up and greeted him with a smile. Qin Xing just stood aside, quietly looking this middle-aged man with extraordinary temperament. Recently, he had been in contact with many big shots in high positions. From their words, deeds, temperament, eyes, and other details, he could roughly judge their positions. After Zhu Qingyuan and his wife finished greeting each other, Qin Ran said with a smile, "Little uncle, I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again on this trip to Shanghai." When she was young, she would stay with her grandparents for a while before going to her little aunt's place. Therefore, she was very familiar with little uncle, who had watched her grow up. At this time, the middle-aged man might be very imposing in front of outsiders, but in front of his family, he looked very approachable. He looked at Qin Ran and said with a smile, "You came all the way from Beijing to visit me for the Spring Festival. As your uncle, if I still don't show up, I'll be a little incompetent." At this time, Zhu Qingwen patted her husband's arm lightly and looked at Qin Xing with a meaningful look. She had already told her husband about this when she met him. At first, her husband didn't believe it at all. After all, it was a child who had been separated from him for more than 20 years. Now suddenly telling him that he had found him, how could he believe it? In the end, with all kinds of explanations from his wife, he finally half believed it. Until now, when he saw Qin Xing in person, he completely believed it. The middle-aged man was called Zhu Changshan. Everyone could tell from his clothes that he was a government leader. He wore a shirt inside and a gray jacket outside. Under the gaze of everyone, he slowly walked toward Qin Shing. Qin Shing was a little nervous because this uncle's eyes were too sharp. He called out anxiously, "Youngest uncle." At this time, Zhu Changshuan's eyes began to soften. He nodded slightly and said, "Your youngest aunt told me that you're back. At first, I really didn't dare to believe it. After all, more than 20 years have passed. I'm afraid that except for us, a lot of people have forgotten that there's a child like you. To put it bluntly, I'm afraid that many of us have lost hope." Zhu Changshuan's words were not polite words. He really felt that way. Back then, that big sister had taken care of him and his wife a lot. He remembered that when he was studying in Beijing, he had some health problems that needed to be taken care of. But he had no time to treat them, and his wife was in Shanghai. That big sister forced him to see a doctor. Later, she boiled medicine for him every day and took the bus to the party school. For a month, he was very touched. Not to mention the little things that happened in his life. This was also the main reason why he loved Qin Ran so much. Therefore, when that big sister died unexpectedly, Zhu Changshan was not more sad than his wife. It took a long time for him to recover, but he still had to comfort and take care of his wife. He asked God why such a kind woman was taken away, but there was no answer until now. Qin Shing didn't know what to say, but he had to say something. After thinking for a while, he said, "Uncle, it's my fault. I made you worry for so many years." "Qin Shing, don't say that. In fact, you're the most innocent in many things. If you want to say sorry, it's us elders who have wronged you. More than 20 years have passed, and we finally found you. You've been wronged." Zhu Changshan patted Qin Shing's shoulder and said with a sigh. Qin Shing laughed at himself and said, "Actually, I didn't expect that I had other relatives. I thought I was just an orphan." "Don't say these sad words. Anyway, it's good that you're back. We elders owe you, and we'll make it up to you slowly. Although you're already a big boy when you left, some things haven't changed. Your eyes are like your mother's, and your nose is like your father's." Zhu Changshan laughed as he spoke. It was not good to be so sad during the spring festival. After all, when the old lady and his wife met each other at noon, they must have cried. At this time, Zhu Qingwen also felt that it was about time. He laughed and said, "It's so cold outside. Let's go inside and talk. I'm afraid that the old lady can't wait any longer. She'll nag again later." Everyone looked at each other and smiled. Then they walked into the house. After walking into the living room, Now called Qin Shing Grandpa under her mother's signal. Zhu Changshan smiled and held Now up. He liked children very much. Usually, as long as he was at home, he would play with them. After Zhu Changshan greeted the old lady with a smile, he chuckled and said, "Mom, I'm afraid I haven't seen you so happy for many years. You've been waiting for the stars and the moon. Finally, your favorite grandson is back." The old lady's face was full of smiles. She replied, "Do you mean that I'm the only one who is happy when my grandson is back? You're not happy." Hearing this, Zhu Changshan did not know whether to laugh or cry. He turned to the others and said, "You're finished. Now that Qin Shing is back, you're all out of favor. Be filial to him in the future." Everyone burst into laughter again. Even the old lady could not help but laugh. Dinner had been prepared. When Zhu Changshan and Zhu Qingwen arrived, they could start the dinner. After all, he had to leave in a while. Fortunately, the round table in the dining room was relatively large. They all sat down after squeezing together. If they were divided into two tables, it would not be so lively. The old lady still pulled Qin Shing to sit next to her. She was really reluctant to leave her grandson. She was really afraid that he would be wronged. When eating, she kept putting food into his bowl. With the help of Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran, Qin Shing did not need to move his chopsticks at all. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. The others were even more envious. It was estimated that Qin Sheng was the only one in the whole Zhu family who could enjoy such treatment. It was rare to see such a lively scene. Of course, they had to drink. Because Zhu Changshun had something to do, he had to drink tea instead of wine. However, since his youngest son, Zhu Jiao, was present, he naturally accompanied the hospitable guests on his behalf. At the dinner table, Zhu Changshun naturally wanted to ask Qin Sheng something. However, Qin Sheng had said it so many times that he did not want to say it anymore. Fortunately, the others helped him to answer the questions. Finally, he got away with it. After dinner, Zhu Changshun left first. The others walked him out first. After that, they came back to the living room and chatted with the old lady. The old lady was very happy. When it was almost time, Zhu Qingwen began to arrange their accommodation. Of course, the old lady wanted Qin Sheng and Qin Ran to stay in the old foreign-style house. So Zhu Qingwen took the others back. Zhu Qingyuan and his wife lived in Qin Ran's apartment in Shanghai. After all, they did not lack accommodation. It was already 11 o'clock. The old lady should go to bed. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng chatted with the old lady for a while. Then they helped the old lady upstairs to rest. Their rooms were all on the second floor, which had been tidied up. At this time, the housemaid came over with a basin of hot water to wash the old lady's feet. This was the old lady's habit every day. Qin Sheng took the initiative and said, "Let me do it." The housemaid was a little surprised. She looked at the old lady and felt embarrassed. The old lady also said, "Sheng let them do this. You go to bed early." However, Qin Sheng insisted. "Grandma, I haven't been with you for these years. It's my duty to wash your feet. Besides, you bathed me many times when I was a child." Qin Sheng's insistence and words almost moved the old lady to tears. So she signaled the housemaid to let Qin Sheng do it. Qin Sheng squatted on the ground to measure the water temperature, add cold water, and so on. His movements were more skillful. At the same time, he chatted with the old lady, which warmed the old lady's heart. In fact, Qin Sheng was also very excited. This was because he had taken care of his grandfather in this way when he was a child. However, he had no chance to do it again. This also made him think of his grandfather. "Grandpa, how are you?" Qin Ran, who came upstairs, saw this scene. Her eyes were inexplicably wet. Then she went out with a smile. She did not want to disturb such a warm moment. When the old lady lay down, Qin Sheng went back to the living room. Qin Ran was watching TV. Seeing Qin Sheng come down, she asked, "How is it? Have you guessed the level of your uncle?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "A municipal leader? Be more specific." Qin Ran looked playful. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and said, "How can I know? Unless I guess all of them." Qin Ran signaled Qin Sheng to turn around. She pointed at the TV that was playing the news and said, "You don't need to guess. Isn't this the uncle?" Qin Sheng looked puzzled. He did not know what his sister meant. However, when he turned around and saw the news on the TV, he was instantly stunned and did not speak. Chapter 416. Shanghai, Shanghai, Shanghai. Since the beginning of modern history, this city had become the most dazzling existence. It used to be surely Yangchang, but now it was the Oriental Pearl. Therefore, as the domestic economic center, every move of Shanghai attracted attention, not to mention the change of the big boss in charge of this city, who didn't know what it meant. Qin Sheng stared at the middle-aged man in the TV news for a long time and did not come to his senses. He was totally different from the amiable uncle who cared about him just now. He frowned. When did the position of the municipal government change? He seemed to have never noticed it. This was big news. However, Qin Sheng thought about it and realized that he had no time to watch the news during this period. After the mourning for his mother, He went to Xi'an without stopping and returned to Beijing for the New Year the next day. He did not have any free time these days. Are you surprised? Xin Ran turned off the TV and joked. She had long been used to this. Anyway, since she was a child, she had seen all kinds of big shots that ordinary people could only see on TV. After all, she was born in such a family and such an environment, but Qin Sheng was different. After Qin Sheng came to his senses, he smiled bitterly and said, I am a little surprised. It is a level higher than I thought. But not everyone can cross this threshold, let alone in a city like Shanghai. After all, the higher you go, the more difficult it is. There are only so many positions. Qin Ran said with a smile, What do you think? All right, don't think so much. In the future, you will meet more uncles like this and get used to it. Moreover, you have met my uncle. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly. At least he had not gotten used to it yet. After all, he was just an ordinary poor loser before. He suddenly met so many big shots, more or less, he needed time to adjust. It was already late. The sister and brother went upstairs to rest and said good night to each other at the door. Qin Sheng lay on the bed and thought a lot. When he was in Shanghai before, although he had ideals and ambitions, he did not have so much confidence. After all, there were tens of millions of people in this city, and there were too many powerful local tycoons. For example, he offended the Yen family carelessly and then left Shanghai in a mess. But today, for the first time, he was so confident. He finally knew why those rich playboys dared to be unscrupulous and domineering. At this moment, his phone rang. He took out his phone and found that it was a message from Lin Su. It was a few simple words, Are you asleep? In an instant, Qin Sheng stopped thinking about anything and revealed a sincere smile on his face. No matter how complicated life was, once he had the spice of love, it was like he was injected with energy, qi, and spirit. Qin Sheng did not reply to the text. Instead, he dialed the number directly. However, he was a little worried about whether it was convenient for Lin Su to answer the phone. Fortunately, the call went through within a few seconds. Compared to the anxiety he had felt at noon, Qin Sheng was calmer this time. He asked in a low voice, Wife, is it convenient for me to talk to you? Lin Su, who was hiding under the quilt, felt warm in her heart when she heard this sweet nickname. She only dared to wait until now to text Qin Sheng. Because there were a lot of people coming and going during the day, her father found several groups of people to persuade her, but they were all rejected by her with various reasons. This house was guarded 24 hours a day. Of course, she did not dare to take the risk. At this time, the people downstairs were probably already asleep. I'll just keep my voice down, Lin Su said with a faint smile. It was as if she had returned to the time when she had just met Qin Sheng, or when they had just confirmed their relationship. Qin Sheng joked, Then I'll also keep my voice down. I didn't have time to ask you during the day. Why did you come to Shanghai? Lin Su asked with concern. Although she was not afraid of Qin Sheng's impulsiveness, she was completely relieved to hear it from Qin Sheng's mouth. Qin Sheng was so smart, of course, he knew what Lin Su meant. After all, there was Yan Chaozong, his mortal enemy in Shanghai. So he replied, Don't worry, I'm not back for revenge. It's just that my grandmother has been living in Shanghai, and so is my small aunt. I haven't seen them since I came back, so my sister brought me here to visit them during the New Year. You have your grandmother, small aunt, and your sister. With so many relatives taking care of you, I'm relieved, Lin Su said with a long sigh. When she did not receive Qin Sheng's call at noon, she was more or less worried about whether Qin Sheng could take care of himself outside. Qin Sheng continued, They loved me very much when I was young. Now that I'm finally back, of course they love me even more, which makes me a little embarrassed. Especially my sister, she almost spoils me to the heavens. It's the first time in so many years that I've been treated like this. Let me tell you a secret, my sister is as beautiful as you. They all want to see you. That's good, Lin Su said with relief. She was also very happy that Qin Shing told them about her. But then she let out a long sigh and said, Alas? Why do you suddenly sigh? Qin Shing said with distress. Lin Su said slowly, Say hello to them for me. I don't know when I can see them. Lin Yu told me that Grandma was angry again today, but they still didn't give in. Upon hearing this, Qin Shing's face fell. He said firmly, I told you that I would go to the Lin family to pick you up in person. You just wait for me quietly. Don't let Grandma worry about you anymore. Now I have the ability and the way to solve this problem. The Lin family can't stop me. That's right. This was the second time that Qin Shing said this, and he was more confident. Lin Su nodded heavily and said, I believe you. They did not talk for too long, for fear of being discovered. Moreover, there were many things that Qin Shing wanted to explain after they met. So they hung up in less than 20 minutes. In the morning, when Qin Shing got up, the old lady was already eating breakfast downstairs. Seeing her grandson coming down, the old lady said with distress, Shing why didn't you sleep longer? Why did you wake up so early? Qin Shing sat beside the old lady obediently and said with a smile, Grandma, I never sleep late. These years, I basically get up at this time. The old lady looked kind and said with a smile, What a good boy. You are much more diligent than them. Jiao, the bad boy, every time he comes here, he doesn't get up until 12 o'clock. When your sister came to Shanghai before, she also got up after 10 o'clock. None of them are as diligent as you. Grandma, I'm used to it. Qin Shing smiled awkwardly. After breakfast, the old lady went to Fuxing Park for a morning exercise as usual. Most of the time, it was the medical staff who accompanied her. Unless Zhu Qingwen or other people came over, they would not accompany the old lady. Naturally, it was Qin Shing's turn today. Qin Shing supported his grandmother and walked in the front at a moderate pace. The medical staff followed behind. If anything happened to the old lady, they could quickly come to ensure that there would be no danger. Qin Shing had not felt this way for a long time. He did not understand why those young people always disliked the old people's nagging. He liked to walk with the old people. Not to mention that the old people did not have many days to live. How many days could they accompany them? Just listening to them talk about the soul-stirring stories of the past was very interesting. Decades of time had finally settled into a few sentences. No matter how many ups and downs they had gone through, they had all vanished into thin air. Those life experiences were all in these words. They really did not know how lucky they were. His grandmother was not in good health, so Qin Shing was not in a hurry to walk. He listened to his grandmother talking about the story of living here when she was a child, the story of him and his grandfather, followed by the story of his mother when she was a child, and so on. Qin Shing listened with great interest and could not wait to hear his grandmother talk like this. After arriving at Fuxing Park, the old lady found a place to sit down casually. She took Qin Shing's hand and said, Shinger, I am a little too long-winded. Ran and the others don't like to hear me talk about these things. Qin Shing quickly replied, Grandma, I like to hear you talk about these things. After all, I know too little. During this period, I will accompany you in Shanghai. Please tell me more. It's better to tell me more for a few days and nights. I'm afraid that you will be tired. Oh, Shinger, you are really good at talking. As long as you like it, I will not be tired. So what else do you want to know? The old lady said very happily. Qin Shing thought for a moment and said, Grandma, please tell me more about my mother. Qin Shing did not dare to say the following words, afraid that the old lady would be sad again. Because he wanted to say, I miss her. The old lady sighed. A child without a mother was the most pitiful, not to mention a child like Shing. She did not want to make Qin Shing sad, so she smiled and said, Okay, I will tell you more. The old man and the young boy sat on the bench in the park and talked about the past. Time passed by slowly. However, neither the old lady nor Qin Shing paid attention to it at all until the medical staff reminded them that it was time to go home. Then they went back. When they returned to the old foreign-style house, Qin Ran had already gotten up. After saying goodbye to her grandma, she took Qin Shing out. The bodyguards of the Qin family had come to pick them up. They were going to visit the two uncles today. In fact, Qin Shing preferred to stay in the old foreign-style house to chat with his grandma and listen to her stories. However, he thought that he might need a lot of resources in Shanghai in the future, so he finally went out with his sister. In the morning, they visited a famous tycoon in the Bund, who was very influential in the business world. Qin Shing had heard a lot about him. However, it was said that he had an accident and disappeared for a period of time. It seemed that the news had died down recently, so Qin Shing did not know whether it was true or not. Qin Ran and Qin Shing had lunch outside. Although the tycoon and his wife wanted them to stay, Qin Ran was afraid that Qin Shing would not be used to it since there were other people there. In the afternoon, they visited another house. His identity was similar to that of the tycoon in the morning. However, compared with that tycoon, he was more low-key, so there were few rumors about him. Qin Ran and Qin Shing left after staying for a while. At this time, Zhu Wenqing called and asked with a smile, "Xinger, have you finished your work? I've made an appointment with her. She is on her way." Qin Shing had mentioned it casually yesterday. He did not expect that his small aunt would arrange it so quickly. He found it funny and said, "Small aunt, where are you? We are coming." Zhu Qingwen told Qin Shing the address and hung up. It seemed that this meeting would be very interesting. Qin Ran found it funny and said, "What else do you want to do with small aunt? Why are you so mysterious?" Chapter 4:17. I'm begging for monthly votes. If Qin Shing had not told her, Zhu Qingwen would not have known that her nephew and Xue Qingwen were so close. She did not expect that Xue Qingyan had helped Qin Shing so much, which made Zhu Qingwen feel grateful to Xue Qingyan. Therefore, after learning about this yesterday, Zhu Qingwen asked a few more questions. Then, Qin Shing said that if he had time after the Spring Festival, he would ask her, as his aunt, to invite Xue Qingyan out. He had not seen Xue Qingyan for a long time. At that time, they could have a good chat. It would be a surprise for Xue Qingyan. In fact, the relationship between Zhu Qingwen and Xue Qingyan was not as close as imagined. It was just that Xue Qingyan's brother and Zhu Qingwen's husband were both cadres in Shanghai from Zhujiang. They used to be colleagues, and they were considered to be from the same department. They got along well, so they had more interactions. Xue Qingyan and Zhu Qingwen had met several times when they were in Hangzhou, and then they became closer. After they arrived in Shanghai, their relationship became even closer. Occasionally, they would attend some occasions together, go shopping, drink coffee, and so on. However, their relationship was really not that of a sister or best friend who could say everything to each other. After all, they had their own taboos. However, after knowing what Qin Shing had done, Zhu Qingwen had a different understanding of Xue Qingyan. So she called Xue Qingyan directly after she went home last night. She asked if she would be in Hangzhou or Shanghai during the Spring Festival and if they could make an appointment. She did not expect Xue Qingyan to be in Shanghai. She had nothing to do and wanted to avoid some people that she did not want to see. Therefore, she made the appointment this evening. Zhu Qingwen had been entertaining guests at home from morning to afternoon. The ways of the world called for reciprocity. Even if Zhu Zhangshun had reached this position, he would still have a lot of helplessness. Moreover, he was one step closer to the new year, so there were more people who wanted to visit him. Some of them could be turned down, but some could not be avoided. Therefore, he could only treat them this way. After finishing these things, Zhu Qingwen called Qin Shing and Xue Qingyan after Zhu Zhangshun went out and confirmed the place for dinner. Dinner was at a restaurant on Dongdaming Road. The restaurant served Shanghai local cuisine. Usually, they only entertained high-ranking officials and noble people. All the private rooms were different sizes. Basically, they were regular customers. The reason why Zhu Qingwen chose this place was because the environment was better, and at the same time, it was quieter. Of course, privacy was not a consideration. Zhu Qingwen was the first to arrive. The owner of the restaurant personally received her, chatting and laughing with her. After all, Zhu Qingwen's husband now stood at the top of the pyramid in this city. He was the person that everyone wanted to curry favor with. It was a great opportunity for the owner's wife to come here to eat. The owner of the restaurant was a middle-aged woman. She was dressed in jewels, and her temperament was naturally graceful and luxurious. Although his business was neither too big nor too small, he did have a lot of connections, and his conduct was admirable, so he could be considered a person. When they arrived, the woman left sensibly. However, before she left, Zhu Qingwen reminded her to inform him in advance if Xue Qinyan came. After Qin Ran sat down, she laughed and said, "Auntie, what are you and Qin Xing doing? Why are you acting so mysterious? Didn't Qin Xing tell you? I thought you already knew." Zhu Qingwen laughed. On one hand, Qin Xing wanted to meet this sister who had helped him countless times. After all, Qin Xing was completely different from before. On the other hand, Zhu Qingwen also wanted to thank Xue Qinyan for taking care of Qin Xing. Qin Ran really could not hold back her temper. She looked at Qin Xing and asked, "Tell me, what on earth is it? You even hid it from me." Qin Xing laughed and said, "Actually, it's nothing. It's just that I helped my sister and Auntie get to know each other. I originally wanted to ask Auntie to help me make an appointment with her after the Spring Festival, and I would meet her then. I didn't expect that she happened to be in Shanghai, so Auntie made the appointment today." "Oh, I see. Then I'm really looking forward to what kind of woman can make you call her sister so sincerely?" Qin Ran was still a little jealous. After all, she thought that only Qin Xing could call her sister, and no one else could. Qin Xing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Sister, you are jealous again. Sister Qinyan really helped me a lot. When I was forced to leave Shanghai, she even helped me secretly." "Oh, no wonder." Qin Ran said thoughtfully, "Auntie, then how do you know her?" Zhu Qingwen explained with a smile, "Did you forget that Sheng said that the first time I met him was because of Qinyan? It's a pity that I didn't know Sheng-er's identity at that time. Otherwise, I would have known him earlier. In fact, Qinyan is a good person. Her father is an old leader in Zhujiang. Although he has retired for many years, he is still very influential. And her brother and your uncle have a good relationship. They used to be colleagues in Zhujiang, and now they are colleagues in Shanghai." Qin Ran thought for a moment and replied, "Serene Xue? Oh, I know who she is. Then this woman is not simple. I didn't expect that she also took care of Qin Xing." "You will know when you see her." Zhu Qingwen laughed and said. They chatted for a while. Zhu Qingwen casually asked about the situation of Qin Ran and Qin Xing today. About 10 minutes later, the middle-aged woman came in and told Zhu Qingwen that Xue Qinyan had arrived. "Xing, you can hide now." Zhu Qingwen looked at Qin Xing and smiled. Qin Xing said that he wanted to give Xue Qinyan a surprise, so Zhu Qingwen followed him. Qin Xing glanced at his sister, who was puzzled. He quietly stood up and walked out of the room. When Xue Qinyan arrived, he would wait at the door of the room, waiting to give Ms. Chong Sam a surprise. After Qin Xing went out, the door of the room was opened again. The woman walked in with Xue Qinyan and said with a smile, "Miss Xue, this is the place." The woman did not take the liberty to come in. After taking Xue Qinyan to the private room, she closed the door and left. Xue Qinyan smiled and thanked her. Then she turned around and walked into the private room unhurriedly. She greeted Zhu Qingwen and said, "Sister, sorry to keep you waiting for a long time. Before I left, a guest came to our house, so I was delayed. Xue Qinyan was still so delicate. She had slightly curly long hair and light makeup. She wore a gray suit with a coat on the outside and carried a custom-made bag without a nameplate in her hand. Her temperament was not inferior to Qin Ran at all. This was the first time that Qin Ran met Xue Qinyan. She looked at Xue Qinyan quietly and nodded silently. Obviously, she had a high opinion of Xue Qinyan just from the first meeting. However, Qin Ran was still curious about why such a woman would have a relationship with Qin Xing. And she had helped Qin Xing a lot. Could it be that she liked her silly brother? At this time, Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran both stood up. Although they were not ordinary people, they were naturally more polite to Qin Ran because of their relationship with Qin Xing. It's okay. We just arrived. Is the old man in Shanghai for the new year this year? Zhu Qingwen said politely. Xue Qinyan sighed and said, "Don't mention it. I put a lot of effort into this matter. Of course, my brother has no time. It took me a lot of effort to persuade the old man to come." Zhu Qingwen smiled and echoed, "People are all like this when they get old." At this time, Xue Qinyan had already sat down. She put her bag and coat on the chair beside her. She looked at Qin Ran and smiled. "Sister, this is?" Zhu Qingwen deliberately came to her senses and said, "Oh, I almost forgot to introduce her to you. This beauty is my niece, my sister's daughter. She admires you very much, and has heard a lot about you. This time, I happened to be in Shanghai, so I brought her to meet you. You two are in the same industry. Both of you are in the investment business." Xue Qinyan was a little surprised. She did not expect that it would be Zhu Qingwen's niece. She took the initiative to greet and shake hands with Qin Ran. They chatted politely for a while. However, Qin Ran was a little unhappy when she heard what Small Ant said. What did she mean by "I admire her very much"? Small Ant, this is the first time that I have seen her. Moreover, in the business world or the investment world, there are few people who can be compared to our Qin family. However, since Xue Qinyan had helped Qin Xing's silly brother, Qin Ran would let her take advantage of her. Therefore, there were more topics to talk about. Both Xue Qinyan and Qin Ran were in the investment business, so they chatted to their heart's content. Moreover, they were both women. After they got to know each other, they really did not need to care about women. When it was almost time, Zhu Qingwen could not let Qin Xing wait outside. She smiled and said, "Oh, Qinyan, I went to Shangshan Ruoshui a few days ago. Why did I hear that you have withdrawn from Shangshan Ruoshui?" Hearing this, Xue Qinyan let out a long sigh and said, "Ah, sister, I have withdrawn from there long ago. Shangshan Ruoshui is no longer the Shangshan Ruoshui before." "What's wrong? I think it is quite good there. I have a deep impression of the child named Qin Xing, but I have never seen him again." Zhu Qingwen took the initiative to lead the topic. Hearing the name Qin Xing, Xue Qinyan was slightly lost. Her eyes were slightly sad. She took a sip of tea and said, "Qin Xing? He left Shangshan Ruoshui 2 years ago. He is indeed a good child. I have always admired him and treated him as a younger brother. Unfortunately, he is not very lucky. By the way, sister, why did you suddenly mention him?" Since the topic had been brought up to this point, no matter what Xue Qinyan asked, Zhu Qingwen would have a strategy to deal with it. So she replied, "I have a friend who knows him. We chatted for a while and asked about his recent situation. I happened to come to ask you today." Xue Qinyan smiled bitterly and shook her head. "Sister, let's not talk about Qin Xing. I feel sorry for him. He treats me as a sister, but I have no ability to help him. I don't know whether he is doing well or not." The atmosphere suddenly became a little sad. But Xue Qingyan's words made Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran have a better impression of her, because they could hear that Xue Qinyan had a lot of feelings for Qin Xing. At this time, Zhu Qingwen smiled playfully and said, "In this case, I will not talk about it. But my friend happens to come today and wants to talk to you." Xue Qinyan was a little surprised. Who was this friend? At this time, Qin Shing also heard the words of his aunt. He knew it was time for him to show up. He took a deep breath, pushed open the door of the box and walked in slowly. Xue Qinyan subconsciously looked in the direction of the door. The moment she saw Qin Shing walking in, Xue Qinyan was instantly stunned. The teacup in her hand fell with a bang and broke into pieces. Chapter 4:18. A loser's counterattack? Begging for monthly tickets. You all have tickets at the end of the month. It was not that Xue Qinyan did not have the ability to help Qin Shing in Hangzhou. It was just that Qin Shing got into trouble before Xue Qinyan could find a perfect plan. In the end, he left Hangzhou in a mess again. Xue Qinyan did not know what happened that night. She just suddenly received a message from Qin Shing. Sister, I'm leaving. See you later. However, it seemed that everyone disappeared overnight. Qin Shing disappeared. Lin Su disappeared. Even Chang Baji, Hao Lei and the others disappeared. Xue Qinyan knew clearly that the night Qin Shing left must have been thrilling. How could Yan Chaozong and the others let him leave so easily? It was just that no one knew. When she received another message from Qin Shing, it was already the evening of the next day. It was still a few simple words. I'm safe. Don't worry about me. Since then, she had completely lost contact with Qin Shing. She could not contact him no matter how hard she tried. It had been more than 2 months. She did not know whether Qin Shing was alive or not. This also became a problem in her heart. Every time she thought of Qin Shing, she would feel a little sad and sigh. However, Xue Qinyan did not expect to see Qin Shing here today. This was the place where Zhu Qingwen had arranged to meet. With Zhu Qingwen's current status, it was impossible for him to have any interaction with Qin Shing. Therefore, when Qin Shing walked in, Xue Qinyan was completely stunned, as if she had seen a ghost. She was dumbfounded and her face was full of disbelief. Even though Xue Qinyan had seen too many big scenes, she could not come back to her senses at this moment. She could not believe that the man in front of her was Qin Shing. However, after confirming again and again, the man in front of her was Qin Shing. Or did he just look like Qin Shing? There could not be such a coincidence in the world, right? Xue Qingyan's reaction was within everyone's expectation. Probably no one would have thought that they would see Qin Shing here. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran looked at Xue Qinyan with a smile. They were more and more fond of this woman. After all, love me, love my dog. Qin Shing smiled and walked slowly to Xue Qinyan. When Xue Qinyan was still in a daze, he said gently, Sister, long time no see. Sorry to make you worry. When Qin Shing finished his words, the answer was self-evident. No matter how Xue Qinyan thought about it, the identity of the man in front of her had been confirmed. He was the silly brother who had disappeared for more than 2 months and made her worry a lot. Xue Qingyan's eyes were slightly red. She did not know whether it was because she had disappeared for more than 2 months. After she came back to her senses, she was completely confused and did not know what to say. She looked at Qin Shing, whose temperament had obviously changed a lot, and then turned to look at Zhu Qingwen, as if she wanted a reasonable explanation. This was too unexpected, and she couldn't understand it no matter how she thought about it. Zhu Qingwen stood up and walked to Xue Qinyan. She said with a smile, Qinyan, are you surprised? You didn't expect to see Qin Shing here, did you? Xue Qinyan asked, Sister, what's going on? Zhu Qingwen held Qin Shing's arm and said with a smile, Qinyan, let me formally introduce you to my nephew, Qin Shing, who is also Qin Ran's younger brother and my sister's long-lost son. What? When she heard Zhu Qingwen's introduction, she was shocked again. She could not believe it at all. Qin Shing was Zhu Qingwen's nephew? How could this be possible? When she brought Zhu Qingwen to Shangshan Ruoshui to see Qin Shing, they did not know each other at that time. How did he become her nephew in the blink of an eye? This news was really too shocking. It should be known that Qin Sheng was just an ordinary man with ideals and ambitions but bad luck in the past. When he was in Shanghai, he was chased by Yan Chaozong and almost lost his life. In Hangzhou, he was jointly suppressed by several parties and had no choice but to leave again. How did Qin Sheng become Zhu Qingwen's nephew after not seeing him for more than 2 months? One should know that Zhu Qingwen's husband was now a leading figure in the city of Shanghai. He was a figure that everyone was afraid of. How could Qin Sheng become their nephew? The difference in their identities was like heaven and earth. Xue Qinyan did not expect that what she thought was an ordinary meeting would be so many things happening one after another. One was more magical than the other. She was overwhelmed and could not come back to her senses at all. She could not breathe. Xue Qingyan's reaction was within everyone's expectation. If this was not the truth, they would not believe it. Life was full of ups and downs. God would occasionally play a joke or two. Qinyan, are you surprised? In fact, I was a little surprised when I saw Qin Sheng, not to mention you. But the truth is the truth. No matter how we don't believe it, we have to accept it. Zhu Qingwen patted Xue Qingyan's shoulder and smiled. Sit down. Let's talk slowly. You will know everything you want to know. After everyone sat down, they gave Xue Qingyan some buffer time. After Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran ordered the dishes, they talked in low voices. Qin Sheng sat next to Xue Qingyan, not afraid that Xue Qingyan was staring at him as if he was a monster. Sister, I didn't expect Qin Sheng to be your nephew. When we met last time, you guys didn't acknowledge each other, right? Xue Qingyan finally came back to her senses. No matter how much she couldn't figure it out, it was just like that. But after asking this question, she felt it was too naive. If Zhu Qingwen and Qin Sheng had recognized each other at that time, perhaps Yan Chaozong and his gang would not have dared to deal with Qin Sheng. Zhu Qingwen drank tea and smiled. Of course we didn't know each other at that time. You may not know, actually I only saw him yesterday. It was also yesterday that I knew he was my nephew who had been separated from me for more than 20 years. Although he has been back for some time, this news was not announced to the public. Separated for more than 20 years? Xue Qingyan frowned slightly. Qin Sheng smiled and explained, Sister, you know about my past. Since I was a child, my grandfather and I depended on each other. I have been growing up in Xi'an. Even I did not expect that I would have other relatives. This is life. Zhu Qingwen added, This is about the past of our Zhu and Qin families. After my sister passed away, Qin Sheng's grandfather took him away. We searched all over the country, but there was no news at all. It has been more than 20 years since then. It was not until a few months ago that Qin Sheng's father found him. Then our family was reunited. After Qin Sheng and Zhu Qingwen's explanation, Xue Qingyan finally understood. She was not so surprised anymore. She just felt that it was too magical. Perhaps even Qin Sheng himself did not expect it. After being separated for more than 20 years, I did not expect it to be so complicated. It is really fate. Xue Qingyan sighed. Zhu Qingwen said with a smile, Let's not talk about the past. Let it go with the wind. After all, Qin Sheng is finally back now. We are completely relieved. That's true. Xue Qingyan nodded silently. At this time, Zhu Qingwen continued, Qingyan, there is no other reason for me to ask you out today. I just want to thank you in person on behalf of the Zhu and Qin families. Qin Sheng has told us everything about you. I did not expect you to help him so much. Xue Qingyan was a little surprised. She looked at Qin Sheng and then sighed. Sister, I actually did not help Qin Sheng much. If I really did help him, he would not be so down and out. On the contrary, he helped me a lot. Sister, don't say that. Before I came back, you were the only one who treated me so well. Qin Sheng sighed. At this time, Qin Ran also said thoughtfully, Qinyan, I know a lot of things. You have tried your best, but there is no other way. Neither Qin Sheng nor we will blame you. After all, you have no choice. Qin Ran and Xue Qinyan were about the same age, so it was not wrong to call Xue Qinyan by this name. I know, but I really do not deserve your thanks. I just treat Qin Xing as my younger brother. Xue Qinyan nodded, but still was not willing to accept Zhu Qingwen's gratitude. Zhu Qingwen knew Xue Qingyan's character well. She chuckled and said, "Since Qinyan has said so, let's not talk about these polite words. Today we are just friends talking about the old days. What do you think?" "That's good." Xue Qinyan smiled and nodded. At this time, the waiter opened the door and asked if the dishes were ready to be served. Zhu Qingwen said yes and ordered a bottle of good red wine. Such a happy occasion, how could they not drink? Although they were all driving, it was not a problem. Qin Ran had already called the bodyguards to come over. The atmosphere of the dinner was very harmonious. It was a drama with 3 women, so the topic naturally focused on Qin Xing. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran were very curious about how they got to know each other and what happened in Shanghai. Xue Qinyan told them one by one, including the bad impression she had of Qin Xing at the beginning, and so on. Everyone could not help but laugh. Of course, Zhu Qingwen also told Xue Qinyan about Qin Xing's childhood. When the dinner was about to end, Zhu Qingwen left with Qin Ran. They went directly to the old foreign-style house to accompany the old lady. At the same time, they left some time for Qin Xing and Xue Qinyan to talk about the old days. After seeing Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran out, when they returned to the private room, Xue Qinyan suddenly hugged Qin Xing without any warning, which made Qin Xing very surprised and even more helpless. Xue Qinyan said emotionally, "It's been more than 2 months. I finally see you again. I am relieved to see that you are fine." Such a beautiful woman hugged Qin Xing, but he could not move, which was really embarrassing. However, smelling the light fragrance on Xue Qingyan's body and hearing her sincere words, Qin Xing gradually calmed down. Finally, he hugged her and said, "Sister, I made you worry. As long as you are fine, it is nothing," Xue Qinyan said with her eyes closed. She did not know why she was so impulsive, but she did not care about it anymore. Qin Xing suddenly felt emotional and said, "Sister, do you think it is a loser's counterattack? A loser who could be bullied by anyone and was chased like a dog has now become a rich playboy. It is really funny and sad." Hearing this, Xue Qinyan burst into laughter and let go of Qin Xing. She laughed and said, "A loser's counterattack? I am afraid that you are the only loser's counterattack in the world." Qin Xing thought about it. He dared not say that he was the only one, but it was definitely rare. Chapter 419. It begins quietly, monthly votes, monthly votes. At this moment, in a villa community in Haikou, an old man with gray hair and a wrinkled face was making a phone call. He heard Qin Chang'an and Qin Xing's name most of the time. The old man's face was somewhat pale. He had been fighting with the Qin family for so many years, but in the end, he did not gain any advantage. Did he really not gain any advantage? Under the joint encirclement and suppression of several tycoons, the Qin family was almost destroyed and paid a heavy price in the end. Qin Xing's mother, who was in her prime, passed away. His uncle, who had a bright future, became a monk. His aunt, who had lost all hope, went to Canada. His young and vigorous father almost gave up. Even his grandfather, who was used to experiencing ups and downs, also took him out of the stage of Siju City. However, the Qin family finally got through the most difficult time. In the past 10 years, the Qin family's development had been even more rapid. Not to mention Qin Chang'an's domineering influence in the business world, the Zhu family's development in both the military and the political fields had stunned people. At this time, no one dared to bully the Zhu family and the Qin family at will anymore. Therefore, some people began to be afraid. They were afraid that what had happened in the past would be exposed. Once it was known, they would definitely pay a heavy price. However, for these tycoons, they would definitely not wait for death. After all, they were also powerful. Therefore, another encirclement and suppression of the Qin family began quietly. Dad, do you mean to break through with Qin Chang'an first? A middle-aged man in the number 1 courtyard of Diaoyutai in Beijing said with burning eyes. He had lost to Qin Chang'an many times in the business world, but he had never admitted defeat. The old man knocked on the table, his eyes full of murderous intent. It seems to be glorious, but in fact, it is full of dangers. Everyone wants to be strong, but in front of the national policy, it is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In the past 2 years, who dares to say that they will not be investigated? Who can guarantee that they will not collapse? The middle-aged man said thoughtfully, Dad, you're right. Recently, the supervision of the financial industry has become stricter. Although Qin Chang'an has taken the initiative to make concessions, it's not easy for him to withdraw from such a big business. I'm afraid that he'll have to cut his losses after the new year. After all, the foreign exchange control has been completely blocked. I'm afraid that his projects abroad will be stillborn. At that time, his company will collapse. The old man squinted and said, Don't look down on Qin Chang'an. He is not as simple as you think. Otherwise, how could he have made you suffer so many losses all these years? These things still need to be considered at length. I'll go back and discuss with those 2 families. Okay, Dad, I'll wait for your good news. But what about his son? Do we need to be a bit more ruthless and end the Qin family's bloodline? Sneered the middle-aged man. It had to be said that this method was a bit ruthless. The old man's expression changed slightly as he said, Don't act recklessly. It's not that stage yet. Besides, even if you want to do that, you should do it at the last moment. You can't blow it up right at the beginning. If you do that, Qin Chang'an will be driven to desperate measures. Dad, you're right. Then I'll continue to inquire about the information. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. As the saying goes, old ginger is spicier. At that time, after bringing Qin Chang'an down and giving him a fatal blow, this man might really be disabled. It was not that there was no precedent. That matter had caused a lot of trouble in the city. After hanging up the phone, the old man was lost in thought. At that time, the Zhu family did not do anything. Now if they took action again, would the Zhu family intervene? After all, their relationship with the Qin family was not good. However, he still had to think of a foolproof plan. He could not be caught unprepared. However, these were not the most worrying thing. What he was most worried about was whether the old master of the Qin family was alive or dead. There had been no news for so many years. As for Qin Chang'an's brother, it seemed that he had escaped to Buddhism. Wasn't he advancing by retreating? At that time, the crisis ended with old Master Qin taking Qin Shing away. Now, the crisis began with Qin Shing's return. Could the Qin family survive this time? What would be the final result of Qin Shing in this crisis? It had to be said that Qin Chang'an did not rashly acknowledge Qin Shing, which was the best choice. Unfortunately, Qin Shing did not know the pros and cons of this. In the restaurant on Dongdaming Road in Shanghai, Qin Shing naturally did not know these things. Of course, Qin Chang'an did not know either. However, Qin Chang'an was not necessarily unprepared. These years, he was used to seeing storms. He had always been prepared for a rainy day, so he had survived many crises safely. Hearing Qin Shing's complaint, Xue Qinyan found it funny and said, Then let me ask you. Do you value this identity more, or do you value the long-lost kinship more? Qin Shing replied without hesitation, Of course the latter. Without the former, I can still live a good life. It's just that I have chosen a different life path. But without the latter, I will have some regrets in my life. Xue Qinyan said with a smile, That's it. So don't think about those useless things. Of course, she knew that Qin Shing had a lot of doubts in his heart. After all, the contrast was too big. She was afraid that he could not really accept it for a while. However, Xue Qinyan said immediately, "Let's take a step back. Don't you want to take revenge? If you have this identity, you can take revenge earlier and easier. You don't need to wait for 10 or 20 years. Also, don't be unreasonable. Those people can bully you like that. Do they really have the strength? Didn't they also rely on their father's shadow? It's just that they are luckier than you." "Sister, you are right." Qin Xing did not deny these words. Xue Qinyan continued to analyze for Qin Xing. "As for other things, you should take a broader view. In the past, when you were standing here, you could only think and do these high-level things. Now that you are standing here, you can think and do more things. Only then can you really realize the value of your life." When Xue Qinyan said these words, she gestured to Qin Xing at the same time to let him see more clearly. Her words made Qin Xing suddenly see the light. At the same time, he thought of a lot of things. Qin Xing said sincerely, "Sister, thank you. After hearing this, I have thought through a lot of things. Don't be so polite. I am also happy for you. I hope that you can live a better life no matter in the past or in the future," Xue Qinyan said sincerely. At this time, Qin Xing suggested, "Sister, I haven't seen you for more than 2 months. It's rare that it's the new year. Let's find a place to continue drinking. I have a lot to talk to you about." Xue Qinyan was also in a good mood. She agreed directly, "Okay. Anyway, I have something to ask you." Qin Xing stood up and said, "Then let's go." When Zhu Qingwen left, she had already paid the bill. The boss personally sent Qin Xing and Xue Qinyan to the door of the restaurant. After watching them get in the car and leave, he returned to the restaurant. "This woman is not simple," Qin Xing said thoughtfully. Xue Qinyan explained with a smile, "What do you think? She used to be a staff of the Beijing office. Later, because of some things, she resigned and opened this restaurant. So many people are willing to support her. She is a person who does things very well." "No wonder," Qin Xing nodded silently. Xue Qinyan said emotionally, "Qin Xing, in the future, you will know that those big shots in your eyes in the past are not what many people think. They seem to be approachable, but in fact, sometimes friendliness is a kind of attitude. It means alienation, vigilance, and condescension. Don't look at how they treat you. You should look at how their subordinates and colleagues treat them. Many ordinary people like to say that they are illusory and low-key. In fact, they only see the disguised side. And many ordinary people like to evaluate the so-called celebrities according to their own imagination. In fact, you are too far away from their lives. You don't know what the truth is like at all. I know a big shot. He doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, and doesn't talk extravagantly. He is a perfect and low-key person. When they meet, he politely exchanges business cards with you. The truth is that he likes to fool around with women. He spends a lot of money on it. He is polite to you to show his attitude. The phone number and email on the business card he gives you are never managed by himself. When you give him the business card, he casually throws it away. How can you know his true face?" After hearing this, Qin Xing was quite touched. It seemed that in the future, they would treat him differently. But Qin Xing asked with interest, "Then what is this woman doing today?" "Her? This is called walking on thin ice and being respectful. It is a different type. Who asked your uncle to be so prominent?" Xue Qinyan laughed. It was so easy to chat with smart people. He could instantly draw inferences and remember it. Qin Xing deliberately joked, "Sister, your brother is not worse than my uncle." Xue Qinyan was not surprised that Qin Xing knew about this. She just smiled and said, "It seems that you know all about it. But what do you mean by not worse than your uncle? Do you know how difficult it is to take that step? It is not an exaggeration to say that it is harder than going to heaven. Many people are stuck in that position for a lifetime. But Shanghai is better. At least there are more opportunities to transfer." Qin Shing suddenly felt that it was good to change his identity. After all, when talking to Xue Qinyan, he was not as uneasy and unconfident as before. Finally, he could make fun of her. He smiled and said, "I believe you will." Xue Qinyan suddenly asked, "Be honest. Did you know it before? Is it also because of this reason that you get along with me?" Qin Shing honestly said, "You won't believe it if I say no. But these things were too far away from me in the past. How could I have the chance to meet such a person?" Xue Qinyan chuckled and said, "That's more like it. By the way, where are we going? Do you want me to take you to a place?" "Hengshan Road. I don't know if it is open. If not, you can take me there," Qin Shing said casually. He was going to the Young Bar on Hengshan Road, which was the bar that left the deepest impression on him. Xue Qinyan did not ask for the reason. She just nodded and said, "Okay." The driver was a bodyguard brought by the Qin family from Beijing. He had been waiting for Qin Shing downstairs. At this time, they had already walked 2 blocks and were waiting for the red light at the intersection. At this time, a Porsche next to them suddenly rolled down the window. A man threw the cigarette but on the ground without manners and spat. Qin Shing frowned slightly and looked over subconsciously. He wanted to know who was so rude. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.